Hello everyone, welcome to another episode by the Numbers. I'm the host Richard Lewis, co-host Duncan Shields, Sam Davis doing the tunes. We're going to be talking about Counter-Strike. First,
Yes.
of course. Yes, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. Yeah, nothing else. Shout out, of course, to the sponsors, rivalry.com. They didn't get in touch with me this week, so I don't know if there is going to be a Thunderdome for an upcoming event. So I'll just...
There is an event. There's Dreamhack tours. I don't know if they do events of that size.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Dreamhack is so far down the fucking pecking order right now. You know what I mean? Even I'm like, do you remember Dreamhack tours like when we were doing it and I had that iconic?
That was the Baguette one. Yeah, people forget that. That was a legit event back then.
Yeah,
they've got one which I think is a mixed game one. So there's some CS in there. There's other games. I think there's Call of Duty in there. I don't know what that is. StarCraft is also in there. So it's sort of like a mixed Thunderdome this week.
Right. People are complaining about my audio levels for some reason.
Sounds great to me.
I know. Same. You sound great to me. People are saying you're loud and I'm quiet.
Fair
so
enough.
I'll just blame it on Sam. You can press him,
I'll just blame another one more on the chat who decided that didn't sound right. That.
Yeah. So you can handle that. Anyway, it's all right, man.
You are right, by the way. This is all you need to know. Even though, and I think people are fully aware of this, I'm not a huge fan of Dreamhack. They've been a little bit of an arsehole to me in the last couple of years. But whatever, nothing egregious, like nothing I would speak out about. Just
nothing like me, where a fucking senior employee published a demonstrably false tweet.
Nothing on that level.
Me. Like, I can't wait to ruin that cunt. By the way, I swear to God, I'm saving all the enemies for the end. Like, gonna get my feet under a very nice table, make my money, and then I will be like Conan, and I will crush my enemies and hear the lamentations of their women, and I can't wait. Because I think about that all the time. It's the one thing that gets linked to and gets brought up, and we all know it's a lie. Like, Sam's there. He knows it's a lie, but apparently Sam's a biased witness, so he's not allowed to give his version of events. Hellspawn, working for the company that had to throw somebody under the bus to appease the Twitch gods, he couldn't possibly be lying, could he? Nah, he's 100% genuine. Like, so, yeah, fucking outright. Fuck Dreamhack. I mean, the more and more I think about it, like 100%.
No, but that's the sad thing.
Fuck Adabese,
right?
the two of them.
In a world in which we have all this like soft exclusivity and the whole refresh blast thing that's going on, the sad thing is, compared to some of the newer cunts that have come into esports that are way more malicious, I know what you mean by what you were starting to express at the beginning. I sort of wistfully look back now, like maybe they're not that bad. Like, the sad thing is, this is a mad statement I'm about to make, but I actually really thought this, right? Being as someone's got to do something about this situation at the moment. And quite frankly, the only solution I can see long run is probably something akin to how people block DSL, which is everyone's got to, who isn't refresh, has got to get together, figure out some sort of a solution where you, on the one hand, coexist, but on the other hand, incentivize teams to come to your tournaments and just basically you get involved in the power struggle and you win out. You stake your own claim. Now, Dreamhack should be one of the companies, just like ESL, where it's all veteran people. Like, we know almost everyone who works at the top of these companies. There are very reasonable people, even in Dreamhack to this day. Even some of the ones I don't get along with on a personal basis. You know what? They still know way more about esports than the newer people. They still have some sentiment and intention that's good. It's just that, unfortunately, for people who don't know, sadly, Dreamhack really are one of the events where I think that will never happen, just on the front of like, sadly, just because they're Swedish, they have this extra beef with people like you and me over politics that we've never even expressed to them or ever brought up in any context. So sadly, other external factors really make that a non-starter, I'm afraid, because I'd love to reach out to these people and figure out some way we can fix this shit, but it's just never going to happen, I can tell. Wrong timeline for this one.
Let me give you a fucking dose of reality here, right? And when I think back about sort of the first boom in esports, the second boom in esports that didn't have a bust. So we've had a boom followed by a ridiculous boom, and this is why people think it's a bubble, right? I think about Dreamhack, and I think about everything it stood for, and I think about the company, and I think about how it went from being this, a very good, prestigious esports brand, right? And then I think about how it became like one of the go-to broadcasts. It wasn't just the tournament was prestigious. The broadcast was fun to watch. It was entertaining.
It was the Atlanta one along with Gfinity. That was the one we were always doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I think about the contribution we made to sort of building up that brand, right? And I think about all of the things that we had to fight for behind the scenes to make that working relationship, even resemble having parity. And then they get bought for like 60 million fucking euros or whatever it was by MTG. And there wasn't a bump in rates. In fact, actually, things got worse. So, I mean, fuck these guys. Like, I helped make your fucking brand like be more appealing to the esports audience, and you just tried to fucking fuck me at every turn. And fuck talent, and were late with payments, and didn't want to bump day rates, and put us in these heinous working conditions repeatedly. It's like, I don't know, man. It's hard not feel a little bit fucking aggrieved.
Sure.
So I'm like, whatever petty politics they fucking think, like whatever they think is on their side, like, oh, do you remember that time Duncan made a joke about one of the sponsors? Or do you remember that time Richard had an argument with the production guy because he kept fucking up the mic in his ear when he was trying to do throws and tosses, and just like little petty things like that, right? If that's what their list of grievances are, somebody should write the comprehensive history about how Dreamhack treated fucking talent behind the scenes. I'm ready for it now. Like with each passing year, I kind of just get a renewed confidence that I'm going to be okay no matter what I say or what I do. And I'm sick of keeping the secrets for these companies that are scummy as fuck. But then again, on the flip side, you look at how they're spiraling down the fucking toilet and having all their market share stripped away by newer companies who are just basically treating esports like a fucking for-profit venture. It's hard not to look at that and think, well, karma has been served, right? Because I mean,
obviously,
if only you'd had some credible voices to say that, you guys were still doing a good job and still offered something of value to the scene. When
exactly,
you don't have that anymore because you fucked all your allies over petty shit.
That is one of the things that does blow my mind. Like, first of all, like, for people like Dreamhack, they also have done the classic move you never do, which is, there's a reason that famous comment exists in the corporate culture, like, everyone you fuck over on the way up is everyone you meet on the way down. No one else in life who hears that ever actually takes it on board, as far as I can tell. Because, like, for example, when me and Dreamhack had our parting was exactly when they had the whole Masters brand going. They bought by MTG. They were trying to brand themselves now as the professional broadcast. I remember knowing it was a different world when someone actually complained to me about a joke I made. That was in no way a joke, by the way, that would be considered like rude or offensive. It's just that they thought it was a bit mean to make a joke about someone. I almost wanted to just go, where the fuck were you last year when we were literally carrying your broadcast through like a million tech problems? Like, and you're going to tell me a joke now should be done, like, just because you subjectively decided that some random guy who's the arbiter of taste. So yeah, what that always leads into is what you just said there, which is, even if you don't want to work with people, why would you actively fuck with people who have influence in the community? I'll never get that. It's like, I'll give you a little teaser, a little tidbit everyone will enjoy in the ongoing saga of fucking Refresh and Blast Pro series. Because the maddest thing about this saga, Richard, is it just get like, I'll tell you straight up, the timeline for me is when I first made that tweet, which now must have been, what, like, at most a month and a half ago, something like that. When I first made that tweet where it essentially just said, like, I can't fuck with Blast Pro series because, they've been malicious to people I know and lied about them, et cetera, right? That was it. I wasn't hinting at some deeper secret and some darkness that they were doing. I really was just making a tweet where my thought process was, I've been fucked over a little bit. Some other people have been fucked over much more, and in a way that was very dishonest, actually, if you know the way that the conversations took place. So I thought, I'll just make that tweet because I don't work with them anymore, and like seemingly will never work with them again. I don't have anything to lose, so I can put one out there so that other talent are aware, people in other games are aware, and it kind of sets the score right, as it were, right? And then they're welcome to make their comment as well. Now, the irony of it is, yeah, I certainly do dislike them because the way they treated me. And then I already had my suspicions about, like, not really liking the way the teams are starting to focus on Blast over the others. But actually, at the time, I didn't know how deep this shit went. It's only because they denied it. They tried to, like, strike back with their own bullshit PR attempts, like that interview. They don't realize they quickened their fucking demise. Like, they made all this shit because it's the old classic tale that everyone who's a journalist knows, which is when you piss off the journalist, that what he does is he goes, let's see if there are any skeletons in this closet. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to make one up. If I couldn't have found anything, I wouldn't have found anything. All I would have been able to say was, not a fan of best of ones. But you start digging around, and especially, by the way, if you know anything about journalism, Refresh, think about this idiot. Soon as you make it clear publicly you are on one side or another, people flock to you with the horror stories they can't tell. So all of a sudden I get the information that shows me the fucked up element. Like, I actually initially thought, when I first heard from Sadakist and other people, some of the details that they knew, I first thought, I don't know, it's a bit of a reach to try and imply they're doing exclusivity. They are just doing some events. And obviously these are the details that emerged that we didn't even realize how bad it was with Astralis. Like, I outlined it the other day. Now that you know the events they're missing, you actually do, like, you know, a cop-style timeline of the event, and you realize that for literally a 3-month span, Astralis will have only played Brass Pro Series events. And then you find out the detail that they were stupid enough to reveal, where they thought that they would put out the fire of exclusivity by saying, but you only have to play 5 out of 7 events. And then people were like, wait a minute, if you only play 5, then surely by telling them which of the 5 they play, you actually enforce soft exclusivity. Shit, What did I say that for? And here's the little tidbit I'll throw in, right? People have been looking into this story outside of the esports world. In fact, someone contacted me regarding this, asking for some insight. In asking for the insight, I actually said, have you tried speaking to Refresh? And he said, yeah, I did actually. When I spoke to one of their main people who dealt with this sort of thing, he told me, you and Sadakist are just saying all this because you don't work with Blast Pro Series anymore and you used to work with them. To which I obviously had the ultimate counter, which shows how stupid Refresh are, that they would, first of all, ever say that with the chance of it getting back to me. And secondly, how dishonest they are. Because as I'll reiterate, I have only done one event ever with Refresh or Blast Pro Series in any context. It was the first Blast Pro Series. It was at the end of 2017. Off the top of my head, I think it was maybe in November of 2017. I did 0 Blast Pro Series events in 2018. I think there was maybe 4 or 5. Now, what did I say in 2018 about soft exclusivity, about the problems with it? Nothing. Didn't do any of that. Didn't dig in any way. Didn't publish anything. So why would I wait a whole year? Like, what happened in that year in their mind? Like, that story only makes sense if I've just been let go from them. You know, I did a whole bunch of events and I'm like a spurned lover, just coming out there. Doesn't make sense. So 2 details. One, just pretty kind of more telling about them as a company than me, that's the angle they come up with. They can't actually answer any of my points or any of the aspects. They just have to basically go like, yeah, but he's a cunt, isn't he? That's about their angle of like fucking defend themselves. And then secondly, again, learn this lesson, Refresh. Learn it now before it gets real bad. Don't ever fuck with people in a manner that can get back to them. Because one day, right, I hope one day either one of your shareholders sees this video or someone gets to one of your shareholders and shows them this video. Because what I'm about to say right now is very pertinent, which is, like I said, I had no reason to really dig too deep on this. I didn't know much about the situation. I just spoke up about my own scenario. So use your own logic, right? It's true. If you'd have somehow managed to get me and Sadakist to work at every one of your events, I don't know if it's logistically possible. Let's imagine you had somehow, right? We charge pretty much the same day rates as the people you did hire. So you'd have lost no money, but most of the story wouldn't have happened. You do see how your actions started this chain of events. And that's why I say I hope a shareholder gets it. Because when that shareholder who understands that the game being played is we're going to invest millions of real money now to one day make hundreds of millions and billions, what's that? We could have avoided this massive social faux pas if we'd have just not fucked with those 2 guys. God forbid that word ever gets back to them, because that's when people start getting fired from the main company.
Well, look, I mean, I've always said this, and it's the lament of companies down the ages. I've heard so many people say it like, it's just Richard Lewis. You know, like no one listens to him. You know, like don't worry about that guy. Like, Riot Games did it, and again, I've talked to Riot Games, like fairly senior staff members who've since moved on from the company, and they've just said like the amount of hours they used to spend like lamenting, like why is he doing this? Why is he all up in our shit every day?
You notice that they always think that as well, Richard. I noticed these people. This is the weird thing I've noticed about people like that. They have no concept of cause and effect. They always think, I did something completely separate, distinct event. Now, for no reason, this person, square brackets, who I fucked with in that event, is now fucking with me. Why am I always a victim? It's like, are you for real?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, like refresh is exactly the same. It's like the moment that Nicola Nyholm decided, instead of just admitting what they were trying to do and just admitting they did have multiple ownership, you know, controlling.
Do you want to know something mad? If they actually
across multiple orgs, that was it. That was it for me.
Even if they went the other way, you know, the one you always used to say to orgs is, if you don't want to admit that you're signing the player, just say nothing. Like, that's the other option I'd also add, Richie, which is if he'd have just said, they've caught us on this whole soft exclusivity, which we are definitely trying to do, obviously, but whatever, let's just not address it. Let's just let it go. They got us on this one, but you know what? We'll make it like damage control. And they're unaware of that concept. I'm obviously aware. They don't know the concept of damage. Just don't mention it. Just let it go. Like I even said on all those episodes, I get it. If I actually was trying to do soft exclusivity, obviously I'm not overtly going to come out and say it, am I? Like, that would be like Thanos going, I'm about to put this 5th stone into this infinity gauntlet, and if I get 6, you all know what, like, you wouldn't do that, would you? You'd just go and get the stones. You wouldn't fucking comment on it.
And I'll say this, you know, if they think it hasn't had like a negative effect on their brand, that they've been out there like constantly, like, again, I mean, look, you can lie to the community, and depending on your standing, the community will either approve, you know, completely embrace that lie, sometimes even knowing it's a lie, and then in other instances they'll basically be like, no, actually, fuck this. You're lying to us. Everyone else is, but today we're going to be outraged about this lie.
Definitely a coin flip, I agree.
Yeah, oh, sure. Massive coin flip most of the time. But anyway, like, you know, that interview was so... I mean, I almost feel that's as big a part of, you know, like, sure, you've got you, Sadikis, people like me, talking about their calendar, how they're occupying it, their plans moving forward, reminder of their history within context, which shows us that maybe moving forward, their intentions aren't honest, right? Like, in what they're saying. And then to address those, they come out and they do a ridiculous interview. I think that interview was as much of a torch paper to the community. The one thing I will add...
That's why I compared it to the Pietro Fringuelli one. Because famously, totally. That was the one that he inadvertently gave the whole game away of Wisa, didn't he? Like, because the same thing, like, there's...
We're going to be like UEFA, but aren't UEFA that demonstrably corrupt organization?
Every piece of damage control they did in that interview fucked them harder. Because, for example... Like, a lot of people forgot, actually. Like, what's mad is when we revealed the initial info, a lot of people, for example, forgot Sadikis' tweet that said there'll be 9 to 12 events next year. So these idiots come out, and their way to quell anger right now, while they're trying to do soft exclusivity, is to say, don't worry, it's only 5 to 7 events over the year. And then it's like, Sadikis like, well, then why is it 9 to 12 for next year? Exactly! That's the point. All they're basically saying is, listen, I'm only going to collect 5 of the Infinity Stones. I'm not going to put that 6th one in, so don't you worry about it. And then you idiots are just sat there like, he said he wouldn't put the 6th one in. What's he putting in there? Don't worry about it. He said he wouldn't put the 6th one in, so I'm sure it's fine. It's like, y'all don't learn, do you, fans?
No, they don't. But I'll just add as well. I think one of the things that's like, it's been heartening to see people kind of push back at the Blast, and you know,
the people who took the Blast logo and made it into the Astralis logo, that's pure banter. You have done God's work.
And I'll add, I think the name Blastralis, because
pretty good.
Astralis is pretty good, and the way that's took off. I hope the players don't get any shit, really.
I actually do feel bad about that aspect, by the way.
Yeah, this is something that I needs to be stated on the record. You won't find 5 more exemplary professionals. And what you've got to understand is they've been used every fucking step of the way. Zonic too, right? Let's be clear. What's happened is that when they first came in back in the day, when it was, you know, Freddie Biscoff was there and was a manager, obviously subsequently moved on from Refresh, no longer there. This guy that, you know, nurtured this team, was very well thought of by the players. First time they were used was, you know, it's a player-owned organization. One of the, like, most egregious lies probably ever told, because in everyone's mind that immediately makes you think of the 5 players around a board table with Freddie Biscoff and the executives, and they get some saying things. Well, listen, when you own less than 2% of a business, you know, that might be good for when it's sold and you get a nice lump sum. In terms of the day-to-day running of the business, that don't mean dick. Like, you don't have any actual meaningful input at all. And that was the situation the players were in, where between them and I think Freddie Biscoff, they owned less than 10%. I can't remember the exact number, but it's in one of my YouTube videos from back in the day, because it's Denmark. So I just went and got the documents, from the equivalent of Company's House out there.
And by the way, even that, as in a quick aside, is part of what has caused this refresh scenario. That at every step they lied. They lied about owning part of Heroic, proved that they did own it. They lied about the players owning the org. Players didn't own the org. We looked it all up. Yep. They just lied every step. So it's like, when that continues, it's getting worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then obviously you have...
Which means, by the way, I assume, of course, they lie to the players, of course. Like, my assumption would be, by the way, because like you say, these are some of the most professional players, some of the smartest players, some of the players who actually do care about the scene as well. Like, fucking Zipnik's created one of the player unions. Like, this guy does care about the scene, I can tell you. But I can already tell you the way they sold these guys on this. I guarantee they just did it like this. They just looked at all the players' goals and what they want. Like, yeah, we do want time off. One of us had a family member die. One of us is ill. With the champions, we don't want to attend every event. You know what? In the future, it'd be nice if we had some leverage over the tournament. They took all those aspects and so I'd compare it to how politicians play the American public. Because what they do is they know what each of the two big bases want to have, and they just go, how do I mold my policy so it sounds like it's addressing what their needs are, but really still serves whatever corporate master I have, So a famous example would be that like tax cut they did a couple of years ago, which did in the very, very short term give everyone a one-time tax cut, but was really set up to give corporations like a way bigger tax cut. It was like a backdoor. I guarantee it was the same thing. I guarantee they sold them on all these great aspects, which to some degree do exist within the concept. Like, if Blast was a great tournament, it would be a way to have all these things. And then it's only after this stuff happens that it comes out, and then the players think, what the fuck? These are good guys, they have the best intentions. Like, why? That's why the players, unfortunately, I think we're attacking them. But actually, to me, I feel like that. Like I said, I feel bad because, unfortunately, I think a lot of fans will think, well, Astralis must know all about this. They must be fully on board. It's like, no, they almost certainly don't, or they don't. They themselves don't see where the rope.
I don't even think there's anything they can do. I mean, that's how I look at it. I think they're like
they also have very little power as well. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they locked into these contracts with this organization. Now, what you have to remember is, if I recall correctly, there was a moment where I think they had the option of getting a higher salary or getting more equity, and I think they all elected for higher salaries. Maybe that would have changed stuff had it been the other way around, but you can't blame a player in this industry ever for wanting to take what's tangible in the here and now. You see all these organizations kind of, go bust all the time, and or people just pull out and just sell, and sell for a fraction of the price because they just want to get something back. So more equity wouldn't necessarily equate to more money, over time, especially given this is very clearly a long-term project. But I've seen a lot of the negativity that's being aimed towards the players. They deserve a little bit because they're complicit in attending the event.
And I will just say, by the way, that tweet, which was a joke by Glaive, was so tone deaf.
Oh, yeah,
that's unreal. Like, I will say, that is one thing I've always said about Glaive as a person, is I know why he needs Zonic as a coach, because he's a brilliant in-game leader, but he's not a people person. He's not a guy who can read the room perfectly. So just as, he's had a few moments in the past, like the smoke thing where people didn't know, is he making fun of us? Is he just joking with us on that whole thing? So I will say, Glaive, I know you thought you were sort of just memeing on the whole situation and making something, funny out of it, but that's mad tone deaf, that fucking tweet, mate.
Yeah, it was. And for those that didn't see it, I don't know if Sam can bring it up, but basically what he said was, I know the community want us all to attend like only the Blast events or something, but just to let you know, our like next 3 events are going to be, and then he listed like ECS, ESL, and then whatever the fucking third one was. And it's like, listen, I mean, I get what you're trying to do there. I understand why you'd be frustrated. I honestly think part of that frustration comes from the fact that they're being, they've got to attend these Blast Pro series events and
pretend they're all awesome and every player in the world loves them.
Yeah. And it's like,
speaking of which, the first player did it, Richard. I said it's amazing with all these outspoken players that not a single one ever complains. The first one did it, and when I tell you who it is, you're going to know why, because this guy's a fucking G. It was Dennis from NIP. He actually replied to one of my tweets and said, best of one suck. What a fucking G this guy's. Because by the way, as far as I know, Nip is a contracted team. So listen, that they might not like that, and he might get some stern words. What a G. At least he had the balls to actually give his opinion.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous again that even after the podcast that we did where we talked about all the Blast stuff, no players still. I mean, Dennis was the first, right? A player who actually came out and said best of ones are garbage, which they are. And I don't know any player who'll tell you privately they enjoy tournaments that are best of one heavy. Just to sort of put a pin in this and then move on to talking about the tournament itself. It does look to be having an effect, because I did see a lot of people saying, on Reddit, and of course this is effectively meaningless because everyone is an idiot. But people saying they were going to like boycott the Blast, they wouldn't watch it, that they don't even like it anymore. The format's really played out, and somebody did a chronological.
Which, by the way, refresh. I'll give you one bone in this whole thing, which is that could be your savior. Even if, I'll tell you right now, I'll fully admit it. If next year you actually nail exclusivity and you have like 10 events and you are the only event with the top 5 teams in the world, but you have a good format, even I'll enjoy it, man. I'll get into it and I'll get past the conflict of interest eventually. Like, I won't enjoy certain other aspects. I'll still think it's a problem for the industry and worry about the balance of power, but I'll at least enjoy the fucking events. Yeah, that'll be a step up.
And somebody did a chronological breakdown of like the viewership.
Okay.
And this most recent one was the second lowest viewership.
Fucking hell. And this is the one where both Astralis' fucking nuke streak ended. Yep. Astralis lost their second tournament in a row, 2 things that had never happened, except for before they became the number 1 team. And then thirdly, underdog team ENCE, who at the moment are the fucking talk of the town in esports, win the event. And you have the lowest viewership.
Second lowest. And
Second.
Basically, the one in Istanbul was 1.4.
That was the one without the good teams as well.
Yeah, in terms of hours watched. And again, you'll see this more and more where organizations, when they don't want to talk about peak viewership and stuff like that, because those numbers are very, they're a lot more stark, right? You talk about hours viewed. I mean, the Overwatch League does this. It's the one metric where it's like they can say, "Hey, look, we look how many."
They have 1 billion games, don't they? So
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It's like we have a 12-hour broadcast there. We have 20 teams. We pump our stuff out via embeds into a client, and just look how many hours our stream's being watched for. It's like it's a bit of smoke and mirrors, that is. But anyway, this was 1.5. And I don't know how much you can sort of read into that, because obviously there were like some teams that weren't so great there, that were like local teams that were basically, as is the modus operandi for the Blast, more about the live crowd than it is for the people at home.
Sure.
But it's quite a big drop off from the previous event, where in Miami, which was a similar tier tournament and same number of teams, and all the other factors you might look at for why the hours might be down, and that was 1.96 million. Hours watched, excluding Chinese viewers. So it's quite a pronounced drop-off, and it does make me wonder if that trend were to continue, whether the Blast would be, revising stuff. Now, my little birds behind the scene have told me the Blast are going to revise the format that they've had.
It's the most obvious thing to fix, like I say.
Yeah. That they're going to move to a format that's more representative of competitive Counter-Strike, but it's not clear when that'll be. That might be in 2020. So it might have some problems between now and then. And I think, as you say, somewhere along the line, some business partners have to be pissed off with the way Refresh have been handling everything, from the very obvious, terrible power plays that they're trying to make, and then sort of even being stupid enough to allude to that fact in interviews, which are meant to put the community's mind at rest, with, perceptions around a very big property. I mean, how this harms Astralis when they've got all these big sponsorships like Audi and everything. That might be something that comes up. So there's still a few twists and turns in all of this story, I think, and quite clearly the community have had enough. And unless they can think of a way to better serve the community a product that they're going to engage in, there's now a bunch of reasons to not watch a Blast event. There's now a bunch of reasons to not want to support them. So, I think they've got some hurdles.
I even thought of a meta point about this, because when I was trying to think, what do the other orgs do? What do the other tournament organizers do to combat this? Well, one of the obvious things you could do is the same thing. So, for example, I actually think personally, it's one of the most ludicrous concepts of the Blast Pro Series circuit that like ENCE obviously wasn't a big team at the time they started the circuit, so they didn't contract them, but they let them play a couple of their events and they've now won one, yet they can't qualify to the global. Like, I don't understand any of that personally, and it's quite weird. So I have to say, if you're ENCE right now, you do benefit from going to Blast as well because it's its own tournament with the best teams. I mean, they've actually have created soft exclusivity for the few months now, at least anyway, until the next tournaments come. But I will say, if I was someone like ESL, Dreamhack, etc., I'd scoop everyone else up. I'd go to ENCE and Renegades and, I'd get like all the other really good teams that aren't currently contacted and try and make a play for them. But here's the thing that it made me think of, Richard, is there's an even worse world. The worst world ever would be a world in which there were two Titans like Refresh doing the same thing. Imagine a world in which we had a tournament circuit where it's like, oh, good, it's Blast this weekend. Can't wait to watch Na'Vi and Team Liquid. Oh, next weekend it's Mr. X's tournament circuit where ENCE, Renegades, and FaZe play. Be a shame they never play each other. Maybe at the major they can meet each other. What a shit world that would. Well, that's also in the world we currently live in an absolute possibility. It just would take two
very
people
real possibility.
Two people with mad VC money.
I would go as far as to say
arms race.
It's inevitable, actually, that we end up with that. I think we end up with two distinct tournament circuits eventually, which have partnered teams that are exclusive to that circuit.
It's the obvious way to battle.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's like Raw and SmackDown.
And it'll suck for us because we used to get them all. We used to be able to see the equivalent of Bret Hart versus fucking Goldust versus The Undertaker all in one org. Yeah. All three of those were in WWF at one point in time. Whatever, you get the point. They were all in fucking both from eventually, weren't they? You know what I'm talking about.
So look, with all of that said, we can just get into talking about the event. I'll be honest, I had not really a lot of interest in watching this live, especially with the hours that it was involved, 'cause it was in Madrid. So for me, it was pretty rough. But I did go through and watch the VODs of the key games, so I do have some insight. I don't know how much of the tournament itself you watched. But basically, I think when a Blast comes rolling around now, its format almost lends itself to I'll catch the VODs. Even the final, I'll just catch the VODs. Did you watch much of it live?
I watched a few. No, I almost never watch games live. I watched a few of the VODs. Like I watched the final, I watched the Astralis game live, actually, the nuke game. But most of the other games I don't watch.
Okay, so look, I think the big talking point that comes out of this one immediately is obviously ENCE winning it over Astralis in a best of 3, which is absolutely legit. Shows a lot of growth and development from the ENCE team. And when you think about, just sort of where they've been in terms of consistency since the major, it's this continuing story that, we asked at the time when they made it to the final of the major, would these players that have stepped up, like the likes of X7 and Ariel, would they be able to continue that? And the answer seems to be yes. I mean, they're in absolute career peak form and making that vital difference. But the manner in which this victory happens, 2-0 clean, nobody could have predicted that, and nobody could have predicted that one of those map wins would be a dominant performance on Nuke. It wasn't like a 16-14, a couple of rounds decided. I mean, it was 16-9, and dominated the map. They outplayed Astralis on a map they hadn't lost in 31 previous attempts. So unbelievable story that comes out of it. Then, of course, as well, I mean, you get a great game on Train. But this is what I've been talking about for ENCE. Like, low key, the reason why they are where they are right now is their map pool is unbelievably solid. Like, they can get into a tussle with almost any top tier team out there right now. And I said coming out of the major that for me, on form, they absolutely were the second best team in the world. And then you get a few more events into it, and I see a team that's definitely capable of in best of 3s. I'd back them to beat Na'Vi, I certainly back them to beat some of the other names that are up there. With Team Liquid being the way they are, you never know what you're gonna fucking get with them. I almost feel like ENCE is a better bet in a lot of ways. And then as you start going down the list, you've got like Fnatic, MIBR, like FaZe. Like ENCE is just a much better option right now than any of those teams. So this was. It's got that potential to be a very big turning point in how we think about ENCE and what they're going to do for the rest of this year. I mean, it's a legit win. over the best team in the world and the best team CSGO has ever had. But with all these mitigating factors, with the breaks, with the only playing in blasts, with people being on holidays and all this other bullshit, it's not a very big asterisk, but there is one next to it, and
well, for example, I made this point on Twitter. Obviously, people got mad because it's Twitter, which is that of all the ways for Astralis' nuke streak to end, the greatest streak ever, by the way. I don't even care if they never got to the 32 and tied NIP. NIPS was against lesser competition and sometimes at smaller lands. You know, there's a million factors. Smaller map pool, people used to ban train, therefore it wasn't even the most scary map that it played. You know, there's a million factors I could go into. I'll probably do some content on it. But it is the greatest streak ever. But if you look at the way it ended, well, as I just said, once we get to the first event that Astralis will have played that is a non-refresh event since the major, which will be ECS Season 7 Finals, there will have been 3 months in which all they did was play 3 blast events. And so as a result, when they played this particular game here, they had only played something like 2 games of Nuke in the last few months because they hadn't attended tournaments. And obviously, a blast, you can do 2 bans in the best of 1 stage. They'd played 2 games, and those were against like lesser opposition as well. They weren't even against the best teams on Nuke. So as a result, not really a surprise you eventually lose on it. You don't even get to play it. If you'd have gone to an event like Star Series where every event's best of 3, you know what? Yeah, a lot of teams would have banned Nuke against you, but Ents, Renegades, a few teams would have played it. A few teams would have let it through. And so as a result, you would have had more playing time on it. Because for anyone who doesn't realize, this is why I actually bring up this concept of ring rust, because anyone who's followed combat sports understands the concept. It doesn't matter how much you train, it doesn't matter how great a fighter you are. If you break your leg and for 2 years you're out of fighting, there's a reason why if you were a champion who was holding a belt, they don't just put you straight back in the title fight because you get your fucking ass handed to you because you haven't been in a real fight for that long. Yeah, you've trained, yeah, you've sparred, but it wasn't a real fight. You didn't have the pressure of the game. And so Astralis basically has given themselves ring rust. They've just been at these blast tournaments playing a bunch of best of ones. They weren't even in one of the finals. They won one of the finals over Team Liquid at the very beginning to make it look good. And since then, they've been gradually getting worse and worse in their form. So the idea that that's how the streak ends, that's so underwhelming. Like, it's one thing if someone just beats you, you know, when you're in good form. And like, for Ents, I don't put an asterisk because they didn't have anything to do with why this sucks. But there are some mitigating factors that, put it this way, in history, when someone asks me why the streak ended there, I'll have to mention the story. Well, the team just stopped going to tournaments. They barely ever played the map, you know, and eventually they ran into a team that could play it and were in good form.
Yeah, and you know, look, I totally agree with you. There was some more news about Ents that came out today, which is almost like a signaling of the intentions. You know, like when you're on top, you have a tendency to jettison as many, you know, smaller tournaments and commitments as you can, so you can really concentrate on going to the big events and making.
Unless you're Astralis, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, didn't really think that through.
That's also why I even took that meme, which I agree. Whoever came up with Blastralis, genius concept. That's why I did the tweet, Richie, which obviously I just nailed it, didn't I? I said Astralis never lost on Nuke. Blastralis did. No. There we go. Nailed it, innit?
Yeah. So they announced today that they're going to be pulling out of the Mountain Dew League, which is, I mean, the MDL. You know, that makes sense, right? Like where they're at. I never like it where teams sort of like just withdraw from a league that they're sort of committed to just because their circumstances change. I didn't like it when Virtus Pro did it continually and were just constantly handed like extra lives and lifelines. And it's like right now, those motherfuckers would be begging to be playing in some of the leagues and shit that they've turned down in the past. So it's funny how it can go around. But equally, with a pretty packed calendar, you like can't blame you know, teams for doing this. But I mean, I think Ents are aware very acutely that they're in a really good spot right now, and certainly can make us, if they make a sustained run, I think they'll knock Team Liquid off the number 2 spot. Like, I really do. I think Team Liquid, to me, there's still some weird like hoodoo over them, right? And they themselves are locked into this weird like death pact with the Blast, so they're going to be missing some events, you know, which is going to be giving them ranking points.
Yes,
now remember, the madness you've got with the Blast thing is Ents aren't a contracted team.
That's why I say they should have all the leverage in the world.
Yeah. Ents were invited to this. And how it works is that the Blast Series has like sort of a recognized final at the end of the circuit. Well, Ents won't be there. Ents can't qualify with I think with the system as it's laid out, because it can only be contracted teams that compete at that event. So, I mean that's something to watch. But I think, like, you know, Ents will be able to go to all of these events, which some of the other teams have been induced financially to not attend. You know, Team Liquid missing out on Cologne. You know, at a time when Astralis had been beaten at a tournament, at a time when Astralis, you know, we're going to be missing some tournaments. This is where you can get kind of number one by default in the HLTV ranking and say, look, we're number one. I mean, nobody would believe it, but the ranking would say it.
Sure.
And now you're not going to be able to do that. Meanwhile, Ents are out there saying we're not going to be contracted, and you're inviting us because you need us there because we enrich your tournament. So it's interesting. What I wonder is whether or not they'll get an offer off the back of this, like having won an event and constantly doing well at the event and flirting with finals and everything else at the Blast. I just wonder if the Blast will swoop in and basically offer them some money to sign up officially. And we're talking about a Finnish fucking esports organization here. Doesn't matter how good they are, doesn't matter how many times they beat Astralis, their monetization potential is always capped because of where they're locally based.
It takes a long time for your fan base to catch up to your results anyway. Like anyone who thinks now, for example, like Enso to be your first invite to a tournament, I would still invite. If I was ESL, I would invite Cloud9 ahead of Ents just for the amount of fans that will watch and buy the tickets.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
of course. It's business sense, right? Yeah. By the way, just as a counterpoint, here's the counterpoint I'll give to the Ents is the second best team angle. I agree. If you look at potential and you look at their skill set and you break it down on paper, they look fantastic. And they actually have room to grow still, amazingly. You would have thought the major would have been them capped out. If anything, they look better now than the major. Here's the counterpoint I'll give you, though, is they haven't actually had many deep runs because Blast is just best of ones into a best of three. Obviously, at Star Series, unfortunately, they played the eventual winner Na'Vi in the first round, so they went out in the round of 8. The problem I have contrasting them against a Team Liquid or the other top teams that are near the absolute top of the table is I've seen them play out a whole bunch of brackets. Like, I know that if Team Liquid gets to a semi-final, they're money in the bank. They get to those finals. I know that they make playoffs routinely. So the only problem Ents has is they still don't have like a big enough body of work to really establish that aspect. The results look great. If you look at the Liquipedia page, it looks awesome. All those finals, it looks great. The problem is you still need to put in like a bit more of like, this is the problem. I never count potential. You have to actually show me it. You have to actually win a bunch of quarters. Like, for example, I assume they're at like DreamHack, Dallas. I know they're at the CS Summit, that's just like some of the smaller teams. Take care of business there. Then I'll know you're a legit number 2 or 3.
I mean, another thing I'll talk about, it's not in any particular order, but I mean, so keep in mind I wasn't watching this live, right, as I said. So I was like going through all of the tweets and reading all of the threads and catching up with all of the news, as you do, because we do a podcast, right? So I want to see what's going on. And I was like just reading all these like messages. Oh my God, Giants! Oh my God! I'm thinking, holy shit! Like, if they had some sort of fucking miracle run, if they beaten a, because keep in mind, by the way, a miracle run at the Blast isn't a fucking miracle, right? It's the difference between turning water into wine or doing like, oh, my thumb's come off, like doing that, right? It's not a fucking miracle, is it? Because it's the best of one. So we all know that method.
The maddest thing is, I know it hasn't happened, but because of how shit this format is, think of some of the bad lineups Cloud9 sent to this event. They could have fucking won one of these.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Remember, all you have to do probably is win like 3 maps, edge your way into that final, and then just have one good best of 3. Remember, the Cloud9 lineup at the beginning of the year beat FaZe in that E-League tournament in a best of 3. It can happen. Yeah. So I'm amazed they actually haven't had a scenario like that where like a totally non-legit team won the event. By the way, imagine if the Giants team had actually done that. That'd be hilarious. Portuguese wildcard entry or whatever, just like styled through the event. Because at the end, what are you going to say? Well, this is the best tournament in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And it does need something for that to happen, I think, to probably underline just how stupid the format is. But anyway, it wasn't even like they did that. They finished absolute dead last. They only beat NIP. Which, fair enough. It's amazing they did that at all. It wasn't even close. I think we all know now that, like, NIP is very much an idiosyncratic team. in a lot of ways.
NIP,
Like,
this was the thing I remember at Star Series when they put up the map pool. NIP on almost every map was between 50 and 60% win rate. So it meant that they could literally win every map against everyone, but they could also lose against anyone on the same map.
Yeah, exactly.
Which says it all about NIP at the moment, right?
Yeah, totally. And you know, it was like, oh my God, Giants versus Cloud9. So you watch that game, you're like, I mean, it was just dreadful Counter-Strike. I mean, you know.
I will point out, if we're making a Venn diagram to put together the pieces here, remember, Fox does play for this team.
Yeah,
that is a primary piece of evidence.
Man, Fox wasn't even
like
the worst player. But I mean, I wouldn't say he was a factor. Right. But he did okay. I mean, I've been hearing about this. Well, not hearing about him, but you know, I've known about this Muteris. Or
he's been around a long time.
Or Matiris. He's been around ages. He was fucking garbage, you know, in the games that I watched, and it was like, you know, getting 14 rounds against this shambolic Cloud9 team is not a fucking achievement. It's not like, oh my God, they've proven that they can hang at international level. Like, fucking hell, the revolving door team of fucking Cloud9.
Here's how I would describe
not international.
Bragging about getting 14 rounds against this Cloud9 team. It's like starting a story like this. You guys aren't going to believe what happened to me last night. So I'm there at the bar, right? Last call. I look around. I think, fucking hell, I don't want to go home alone again and watch that video for the 14th time that's sitting on top of my dresser. I go, fucking hell, surely I can chance my arm somewhere. I look down the bar. She wasn't good looking, I'm going to say that, lads. So anyway, I go up there. I think, fuck it, no one's looking. It's last call. I go up, I say, can I get you a drink? She says, no, thank you. Goes home. It's like, that. What story would that be? That's you. The setup was good. You were about to get to a story and an anecdote. No story happened. If you go, you won't believe this. I got 14 rounds against Cloud9. All right, what happened? Did you win the game then? Well, no, I just told you I got 14 rounds. So you lost then? Yeah, I lost to a bad team, and they'd never played me before, never studied demos of me, didn't know anything about me. It was basically my best chance to ever beat them. I was even only one country over while they travelled from another continent, but I didn't win the game. So, like, if someone told you that story and he'd stood up and did a thing on a glass, you'd go, boo, that's not even a fucking story, sit down. Like, and people are bragging about that.
That is the joke. Yeah, it's unreal, isn't it?
Where's the anecdote?
And obviously they did it against Ents as well, right? Like, they got 14 rounds there on Overpass, and it's like, yeah, okay, congrats, like, but you know, it's like listening to someone who said, you know, everyone's got this fucking story, don't they? Like, everyone's dad or whatever, you know. Yeah, bloody hell, I went and I had trials at Leeds, and you know, I could have played for them.
Could have been somebody.
Yeah, but twisted my knee and that, and then just didn't get in. Like, fuck
then
off,
in
mate.
came this bloody Gary Speed or something, I think he was called. Anyway, I don't think it could have been me. You know what? I love it when they do that.
Rest in peace, Gary Speed, by the way.
He's a legend. You know that classic move.
You've had to pick the dead guy.
He can't come back at me now, can he? Can't clap back. Take that, Speed. Tell you what, bet you wish you could have outrun the fucking Grim Reaper.
Right, on that note, Discord's out of lag, so I'm going to change the server a sec. Little break, yeah. Right, there you go.
Right, we're back.
Still doing a crackle. Have a talk again.
Oh, is that just not my focus?
No, because Duncan's doing it as well. Have a talk.
Really?
Yeah, right. I'm going to restart the call. One sec.
Okay. Just joined in again. Is he back?
We go.
Hello. Is that fixed?
Sounds better, yeah.
There we go.
No, it's not, but
classic Discord.
No, but that's one of the things I always hate about fans anyway, Richard. You know the way they always act like every what if story gets parlayed 7,000 times magnitude. What if I got the chance to play my first game there? I might have still failed and it might be the end of the story, right? No, in their version, the what if always that. Like, you know, when people were going, bet Kirby must be kicking himself. I always used to say to people, but why? Astralis wouldn't have been number one if he'd have played. You know, Magus was pretty key. It's not like Kirby was just going to have played fucking Quantum Leap style and every single other thing. Like, he'd just be inside Magus, but that'd be a fucking wild day to wake up when it. Listen, Kirby's not a looker himself, but he goes up to that mirror. You all know the episode I'm thinking of, and he just goes, fucking hell. So anyway, you get the point. Like, let's skip that. Let's skip the end of that joke.
Right, everyone leave the call and then I'll recall it, right? So what? Because it's robot in the fuck, right?
Right, BRB.
So yeah, everyone leave. We go again.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it better?
Hello.
It is at the moment. I reckon it's just Discord's end, isn't it? Seems okay.
Is it the server?
Fucking hell. I think so. Right, hang on. One last thing. I'm going to restart my Discord and then we'll try again.
Right.
Fucking hell, lads. Why can't something just work on the internet? Why can't something just work? Switch to servers, lads. Servers don't know. Hello.
Hello.
There we go. That sounds better.
Hello?
Yeah, right, there we go. We're in, mate. That seems to have worked. Turn your camera on, let's get it.
Right, brilliant. Love Discord. Love this. Right, anyway. So, I mean, look, yeah, fucking hell.
Giants.
Like,
yeah, the whole... mad about them.
Yeah, the whole... Is it doing it again?
Yeah. Can you do your restart and your voice thing?
Why don't we just all restart Discord? Maybe that helps. I don't
Right.
know why it might. Maybe it's controlling the mic or something, right?
Like Fidel Castro. All right, I'll go.
Okay, now. Restart again, lads. Hang on. Fucking hell. Then remember MSN? That was a good program.
Hello.
Right then.
Right. Is that better?
Sounds fine in the moment. Richard's in.
Hello.
Hello. Still sounds fine.
Test. 1, 2, 3.
Sounds fine. Right. See if it doesn't shit the bed again.
Right. Awesome. So yeah, I was just saying, like, the way people were going on about Giants, like, you would have thought, like, we'd seen some sort of fucking, you know, amazing, like, emergence of, like, some great new team that was on the, you know, on the up and up. But actually, they just had a couple of, like, games that were close because everyone fucks around at these tournaments. And this is the other thing as well. I've said it multiple times. Like, how many times does it take a team nobody's heard of to, like, have some close games against top-tier opposition for you to sink in that, first of all, they don't know their play styles, they don't know their tactics, they don't know who they are, who's good, where they play. And yes, straight don't give a fuck.
That was Cloud9's last game when they couldn't even make the final. They literally had nothing to play for except not losing to the team that the home crowd were vaguely cheering for because Portugal's next to Spain. That's about it. Cloud9 had nothing to play for. That was like the fucking world championship for Fox and Mootris. That was the biggest game they'll play this year. And they didn't win it.
Right, hold on. Now I need to restart my focus, right? So.
Really?
Yeah. 2-6.
Right. Seems to have sorted itself out now anyway.
Okay, right. We should be good. So anyway, yeah, what was the other fucking story I wanted to talk about coming out of this? Enjoy cutting this together, by the way.
Let me think. What was that happened at this event?
I mean, is it even worth talking about fucking Navi's results? I don't even know. Like, because it's all best of ones. Like, it's just like...
Yeah, that's the problem.
What do you want me to fucking glean from this? Like, you know, Navi shit the bed in a few best of ones. I mean, who saw that coming? You know, it's just like the storylines that just...
They're already famously not that great team in the best of ones anyway. If you ever go watch those IEM tournaments where it's best of one first, they're fucking primed to lose that first one. In fact, you know, that's something people got mad about on Reddit, Richard, because the first game Na'Vi played was the one against Ents that they got rocked on. A lot of people were complaining that you shouldn't say, because a lot of the analysts always say this, that, you know, Na'Vi's one of those teams, it's true, by the way, who has, like, the fucking early game flaw. Whatever the first game of the tournament is, whatever the first game of the day is, they're always weakest in that one. Well, if you just look at their history, that's just true. Think about how many fucking times. Like, at the Star Series, they just won. They lost on, like, day one to fucking Vici Gaming in a best of 3. Like, these motherfuckers can lose to anyone at the beginning of a tournament, but the point is, how do they end the tournament? Well, in this case... You start with best of ones, you end the best of ones. You're right. There wasn't any room to really get a gauge on how good they were. I find it very, very hard generally in these blast tournaments, except for the teams that make the final. Unless you went 0-5, I find it hard to say much about any of these teams. It's so tough to know.
Yeah. So look, I mean, fuck it, like. That's the blast. Ents won it. Like, bunch of fucking best of ones occurred. The format's fucking shite. Like,
one thing I will say, one thing that wasn't...
Tune in next month for the same breakdown of another blast event.
One interesting X factor was that obviously, like, NIP was one of the better events better teams at the event, and Dennis, who obviously only just came back and has now only played like a blast, I think EPL or something, was in really good form. So actually, that break he took, for, presumably for his own fucking sanity, because he was playing so badly, seems to have worked. Actually, it seems to have like revived him, and he's back to actually looking like a fucking dangerous player. Which obviously was the saddest part about when he went off the cliff, because first of all, if you remember the timing of when he got bad, was exactly when Nip got good again, and he used to be such a good player. You were like, fuck, if only he was good. Well, if he can actually maintain anything close to this form, maybe NIP can actually be a top 5 team. Maybe they're probably knocking on the door at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add that. I mean, what I'll say about NIP, what was apparent over the games that I saw, is that, at least Dennis is sort of betting back in and getting close to himself, close to what he, kind of used to look like before his dip in form. So maybe that break did him some good. Maybe being dropped from the team for a little bit did him some good. I still won't hold my breath because he was absolutely fucking terrible at the point where he got cut and they brought Makalele in. There's no getting away from that. So, I mean, I feel like he's always got the capacity to be that bad again. But yeah, he's definitely, he stepped it up in this tournament, which is, because of its format, effectively a meaningless metric by which to measure his form. So, sorry, Draken, not Makalele. Sorry, I'm living in fucking 2016.
Basically, 2019 Draken, as I call
yeah. Sorry, the
Neo Makalele.
the inconsistent Swedish AWPer that they brought in, which has definitely never happened before. So, I mean, it just is the same, isn't it? Yeah, version 2 of Makalele, basically.
By the way, one other thing to just point out, because this does need to be on record somewhere for people who like banter and funny comments. So when Ents breaks Astralis's incredible 31-game streak on Nuke, no one could do it the year before. Obviously, that was one of the stumbling points because that was obviously Astralis's home map. They were so amazing. You've also beaten them in a big final. Alu's comment, you always want to know the comment, the quote. His quote was just, he goes, "Had to be done." It's like, sound. So you're over the moon, aren't you? Like, had to be done. It's like he's some mad fucking like henchman. Like he's like that fucking guy Richter out of like fucking Total Recall or something. It's like just some fucking henchman guy issuing weird one-liners like that.
All right, hold on. Sorry, there's an idiot in chat. So, Baba Roots, when you're doing a live TV show, especially one that's being ravaged by tech problems, occasionally people might misspeak or misremember because they're also contextually aware, trying to be aware of their environment so they can drive a show. I don't give a fuck if Duncan misspoke about this tiny issue, so stop spamming me, you fucking moron. In fact, here's what you will do. I'll predict your future for you because I've just dealt with so many pathetic fucking losers like you, right? Because I've replied to you twice and basically been quite demeaning to you because you're not worth my respect or time, you're going to cut out of the Twitch chat, look at what Richard Lewis has said, and you're going to make a Reddit thread or tweet at people about it. And here's the funny part, right? You're just wasting your time because you do not matter. You simply do not matter. Nobody cares. I get to call you a cunt. I get to. That's life. I don't have to show you any respect whatsoever because you're not worth it. Now get the fuck out of my chat. Never watch this show again. Fuck off. Right, awesome. Glad we handled that. Right, anyway, let's move on to the other big news story that everyone's been talking about. And it's one of the most ridiculous things ever. I think when I was trying to explain to people that like FaZe basically had like no like ambition anymore, and they were being limited.
And maybe don't have money as well.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's not that they don't have money. It's that there's a lot going on in the background that means that they're not going to access those funds.
Right.
And there's been some legal stuff alluded to. I mean, I'm not just talking about, there was that lawsuit over the apparel. Right,
okay.
There was that lawsuit over that. The FaZe there was a few other things going on. And a lot of this you have to sort of know what's going on behind the scenes to kind of get into it. But for whatever reason, an organization that seemed very happy to spend big on bringing all the big names into into their organization and put an all-star roster together. They suddenly stopped doing that. And what you saw was, hey, let's get these stand-ins. Let's not find an ongoing solution to the Olafmeister thing. Hey, let's fucking bring in Adrian from, which probably cost them absolutely nothing whatsoever except a very modest salary because of the situation he was in over at Gambit. Now Adrian leaves, and for reasons I will never understand, they've announced that they're bringing Neo in to join FaZe. And it first, there was a lot of confusion even about the announcement because the information came in like a drip feed. So there was like some Polish website that was like, look, Neo has got Nico on Steam Friends. And it's like, well, obviously he does. All the pro players of everyone. That doesn't mean anything. And then it was like, but look, they're playing a live game. Look, we found Go TV and look at these are all their names. All right, okay, good. I mean, they could be, that also happened.
Yeah, someone else has got that whole shtick with a Twitter account that just does that, mate. You're late to the trend for that one. Someone else gets all their info by just looking at servers he knows.
Yeah. So, that happened and it's fine, and then it came out, they did an announcement, but first it was sort of like, oh, he's going to be a sub. And then it was like, no, actually, he is going to go straight into the lineup. And this is where it gets very interesting. So Neo is joining this team and he's going to be straight on the starting roster, even though they're billing it as a trial, which is, again, guys, it's not some fucking clan on, like, enemy down.
I'm also just going to go ahead and say
put your trial tags on Neo. Put a T at the end of your name.
It is by definition not possible to be on trial and be the in-game leader.
I know.
It's like me joining McDonald's for a week as the trial CEO. It's not going to happen, is it? Think of all the shit that I'd change in a week. Like, you're either not going to give him any power or he's not really on trial, is he? You just want to get out and you don't have to give him a contract.
Yeah, and Neo is going to be the in-game leader, right? So this says to me that, I mean, first of all...
This guy's a fucking horseshoe up his ass. Unreal, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll come with the horseshoe. That's up his ass in a sec. But like, I mean, look, I think, first of all, he's coming in as an in-game leader, and it was like, they probably had... I mean, they knew they had to make some changes from Nico being the in-game leader. I mean, I think that was apparent. But obviously, the criteria out of who was available seems to be who can we afford, who's out of contract, and who does Nico respect enough to stand aside. And when you take all of those criteria and who ticks all of those boxes, you're probably just left with Neo. Like, that's it, right?
Well, think about it. One of the problems is you don't have the money to buy anyone who's the best now in terms of access and the funds. So basically, it's like I said, that's the reason why people probably thought it was wacky when I said like Fallen would be my pick to be the FaZe in-game leader. Oh, I don't think Fallen's the best in-game leader now. I'm just trying to think who the fuck would these guys respect, who they could get. That's the point. So of those people, obviously these names respect Neo. Of course, fucking Yanko and Nico and people of Olaf Maestro went ahead to... Yeah, we get that they respect him, but like, fucking hell, like the idea you can join a team like this is wild. Like, I can't think of a comparison. Imagine a sport where here's the problem. This doesn't even happen in sports, Rich. Like, yeah, someone would take a trial on an old player who's really good, but it wouldn't be like fucking Real Madrid wouldn't sign Fat Ronaldo now, would they? Like, that would never happen under any circumstances. So it is a mad out of left field move.
Yeah, and it's just so just as a player, right, you have to understand you've got to put up numbers as an in-game leader. Like, there's just no getting away from that fact right now that the game is being played at such a high standard that...
Oh, by the way, to corroborate your point as well, very quickly, remember, it was true that they had actually been thinking about Pronax as well in the past when that was revealed. So that means, look at the cast of people they were choosing between. Adren, Pronax, fucking Neo. They can't get any top players, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And Neo's numbers were terrible, like all throughout the second half of 2018, the sort of games that he's been playing in 2019. You go back to February. I mean, this guy, I think in 2019, I've got it in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He went positive 6 times HLTV.
And that's playing at a lower level as well, remember.
Yeah,
now he's gone down to the lower
tiers. And that includes playing against Wendigo as a stand-in for Heroic. That's playing against teams called fucking Throw Potential. That's playing against AGO. That's playing against Spirit. That's playing against XCOM. You know, if you go back into 2018 when they were still somehow playing real teams and still somehow going to events, it's even more depressing how fucking washed up Neo has become. And it's like, I thought maybe when he did the stand-in period for Heroic, he might have kind of been like, oh, yeah, this isn't for me, actually. Like, the magic has gone out of this. It was only working when we were the Golden Five. It was only working when I was on top. It was only working when I was playing at Majors. And I honestly don't want to play with other people. But obviously, he's a savvy guy. So if FaZe come around, why would you say no to that? There can be no downside for Neo for this move. Like, I mean, because everyone expects him to be shit. Everyone expects him to play poorly. Everyone expects him not to put up the numbers. No, does anybody? By the way, in-game leader, I know he's done it intermittently throughout his career, but typically because of the dynamic that
he was pretty good in Virtus Pro. That was some of their good periods.
That was some of their good periods, sure. But again, because he's only played with those guys, and they've always
that is an issue. Sure.
changed the roles rather. By what metric are we judging him as an in-game leader?
Yeah,
by what metric are we saying this is the tactical mastermind that's going to fix all of FaZe's problems? Like, honestly, this might sound unbelievably extreme, given that we're talking about Neo, one of the greatest players of all time in other iterations of Counter-Strike. I honestly think if this is the move that you think is going to fix everything, you may as well have put Yanko in. Like, straight up. I don't even believe he's going to play at a higher level than Yanko did, based on what I saw at IEM Sydney, and based on what I've seen from Neo recently. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to come in and like understand all of the players and understand what roles they want to play in. I'll guarantee you the number of fucking FaZe demos that Neo's watched since Virtus Pro went to shit is exactly 0. And just in general, is that part of like what he does? Nah. So I'm not feeling this move at all. I think this is like embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing for almost every party apart from Neo, where it's like, if this does turn out to be his swan song, which surely it must be, he actually does get to go out on top, but not because he deserves to, but because the world is mad and everyone's just decided, yeah, we'll just bring Neo in to be the new in-game leader of FaZe. Yeah.
And by the way, for anyone out there who thinks to themselves like, yeah, but we all want to see him play. He's a legend. Let's just give him a spot anyway. I always make this point. But remember, CS is a cycle. You start as a young player who's good and you have to prove yourself. You keep going up. If you're really lucky, maybe you get to the top. One day you're the guy on the way down that the new young good player takes over from. So when Neo sticks around for an extra year in Virtus Pro stealing checks and now goes and steals checks in FaZe, that ain't cool because he's a legend. Because he's a legend, he was paid for being a legend. He's been given the credit for being a legend. For being a legend, that ledger has been evened out. He's now just stealing someone else's spot. Let's be real. Like, this should be a younger player's spot, or this should be a newer in-game leader's spot. This should be someone else's spot is the point, because he didn't earn this spot. As Richard says, he played fucking terribly in Virtus Pro towards the end. And even when he went to the lower level, he was playing terribly. It's not like his numbers just spiked then. It's like maybe he's got to... He didn't even do when the Virtus Pro lineup fell apart. Taz did way more than fucking Neo did. Taz doesn't get the call up to FaZe Clan, I notice, because he's not someone who Olaf Meister goes, he used to be so sick at 1.6. Like, they're all living in the fucking past. Like, the reason why this tilts me, right, is because I'll go ahead and tell fans something they might not be aware of with players. There are a lot of pro players who don't ascribe to my model of the game. And by the way, my model of the game, as you'd expect, is what everyone who's a fucking fan uses, because you all watched my fucking videos when you were coming in the scene. So you all think I'm an idiot who doesn't know anything, and then you parrot my fucking way of thinking about Counter-Strike and then use it against me. So that whole vision of like, you have 2 stars and you have like a hybrid star in the middle who can be more supportive and more aggressive. Then you have the supportive core of the team, usually made up of the in-game leader and a support player. The reason I came up with that formula was just by observing the way teams are created, and then why do super teams fail? Why do lesser teams sometimes succeed? I came at the end, just as in football, the traditional formation is 4-4-2. I came up with like, what's a basic model? And then you can break some of the rules depending on who you are. Well, when I came up with that model, there's a lot of pro players don't agree with it. They think that a team is just 5 good players and that, you decide the roles after you get the players. And all you should do when you recruit players is recruit a good player. You don't recruit them for a specific role or task. There's no such thing as roles. They think it's nonsense. Simultaneous to thinking there's no such thing as roles. I don't know how they explain the stats imbalance across teams, but I don't go into this madness because it's their vision of the game, not mine. The other thing they all do is this as well. Behind the scenes, I know on Twitter, they all say, great game, Ents, you have won, haha, great match. Secretly, they don't respect half of the other pros. And the maddest detail is this, they judge all the other pros on how skilled they are at the game. So they believe there aren't roles and everyone's judged on how good they are. So if I was behind the scenes now, I won't say which members' names, because I don't want to be rude or anything, but I guarantee if I had a chat privately in a bar with a FaZe player 3 months ago, they'd probably tell me that players like, for example, like Kirby, they'd be like, why do you still go on about him? He's fucking nothing. He was all right for a while. He's no big deal or anything, What? Get right. He's washed up. He is. And then they go and recruit Neo with a fucking straight face. Don't believe in roles, but he's magic. He's going to be as soon as they start telling you they're going to do, he's going to be a support player and just bring his experience. Like, why are you saying that? That's the sort of thing that would work for my model, mate. That doesn't work for your model. He should just be one of the best players in the world according to your model. And how can you possibly respect him? You respect him because he painted into a corner and you have to pick one of these bad players. That's just a fact. I'll say this. In my video that I did on this topic, I wasn't like super in favor of it. I don't think it's a great move. But I actually did try to rationalize a reason I thought it could work, which was this. If if FaZe isn't going to be the team they were a year ago, which is we just got the best players and we try and shoot everyone in the head, which, to be fair, is an incredibly one-dimensional way of playing the game. If they're going to go towards some kind of structure, to be fair, Virtus Pro isn't a bad model to take. They were a team that had quite a bit of firepower, had an interesting mix of players, and they never were the most tactical team, but they had some kind of like a nice hybrid. They were in the middle somewhere. They had a nice set of innovative tactics, and then some they carried over, and a lot of them were just tailored to their players. So I thought, you know what? If he could do something like that, it would work. But I will say, you do have actually a pretty good counter to that point, which is he did only do it with 4 other players ever.
Yeah,
it's not like he ever brought in a young player and developed that guy. He never brought in a different player and gave him a different. Like, to be fair, I actually probably have overshot that point because he did only do it with 4 players. That is fucking pretty weak for an in-game leader. There's not really much to base it on there.
When we're talking about great in-game leaders, I want you to fucking have a history of like playing in other lineups. I want you to have a history of bringing talent through and turn them into winning lineups. Now, maybe we can say Neo sort of did that with Snacks and Bialy, maybe.
To some degree.
To some degree, right? But I mean, you look at where it was at the end when it was just the bickering of the fucking husband and wife, Neo and Taz. Well, where was all that acumen then when times were hard, right? As the scene progressed and the scene got harder, Virtus Pro continued to go down and down. And yeah, a lot of it was to do with them being, perhaps older, like not being able to keep up with some of the young talent that was coming through. But it wasn't like at that point they looked like a really good tactical team who just weren't hitting their shots. In fact, I would even go as far as to say peak Virtus Pro was just about brute force. It wasn't about finesse. It wasn't about clever tactics. It was just literally, we will just fucking steamroll you. And when we've got the momentum and we know that you're struggling and you're on the ropes, we'll just keep hitting you in the soft spots over and over and over and over again. So I'm not sold on this idea that Neo, I think he can be a great in-game leader with his mind, but I think he's leaving it a little bit late in the day. I mean, it's fucking, it's 5 to 12 in his career. I mean, being generous. Like, I don't know, man. But look, I think this isn't, like I say, it's not even Neo's fault. You take this job all day, no matter. Neo could be 41.
It's like what I always said about Skadoodle
you a contract, you come out of retirement and you go and you play.
When Skadoodle stuck around in Cloud9, that ain't Skadoodle's fault. He should do the best he can, try and win the best team he can and get the best salary he can. I agree, same scenario. If you're Neo, of course you take this offer. Why wouldn't you? The real question is, why the fuck are you even being offered this? That's the real question, right?
Yeah. And it's indicative of a bigger problem. Like, think about how FaZe would have approached this problem in the past. Who would they have gone out and got? How would they have fixed this problem? What type of players?
Got the biggest fucking name in the world, wouldn't they?
Well, I mean, there's players out there that again. Sure, this doesn't fix the in-game leadership problem, but don't tell me Automatic's having a good time at Cloud9 still. Don't tell me he's got any faith left in that project. And this is a player.
If he has some mad Stockholm syndrome to still be on board there.
I think at the most recent blast, I think he was like the number one player, and I don't even know how many games Cloud9 won.
I mean, they maybe won like one. I'll check.
Yeah,
yes, they won one game, and he was the top-rated player.
Yeah, that's insane. Now, FaZe of old would have been like, let's call up Cloud9, let's spend our VC money, let's spend our investment money, let's do this, let's do that. This is a great move. We'll take them off your hands, cha-ching, it's all done. No,
they basically were doing this last year. Remember, they were offering to Shocks and Cold Zera and fucking Sonny.
Well, that was the other name I was going to say.
Course.
MIBR, right? There's all this uncertainty around what's going on over at Immortals.
You make them a big offer that's worth it. You tell well, it's not really no wins anymore, but you tell them, listen, I'll pay you above the odds for this player. Of course they do that deal if it's a really good one.
No, but I mean, keep in mind, Cold has very publicly said he'd like to play with Nico. Maybe the way you fix Nico as an in-game leader is you actually just get players around him who are just good individually and don't need to be tactically, micromanaged, and all want to play with Nico because of how good Nico is and Nico's reputation. These were solutions to the problem that the FaZe of old, and by old I mean a year ago, would have been looking at. This is how they.
Apparently, the other player they asked for was Flusher when he came back from Cloud9, but I think he's just taking time off for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and that's fine. You're dealing with a pretty heinous bereavement. So, again, that doesn't inspire me with any. What they're doing right now is they're saying we've got budget for salary, but not for signings. That is bad. Like, where's the money all tied up? And then you start looking at the bigger picture, what's going on in esports,
It's also pretty wild that a team like FaZe would be trialing someone, Richard. Like, you trial someone if you're... Here's how you trial someone. Say North wanted to take on, as they did in the past with like Mertz, an academy player. That's where you trial them. You go, right, I'm going to give him 3 months in the first team, because you're trying to signal to everyone. It's a big chance here, mate. Better prove yourself. And if it doesn't work out, obviously I want wiggle room to get out. If you're a team like FaZe Clan, you're supposed to be signing players, not trialing them. Like, you're not at the level where you're trying players out. If you're trying them out, that suggests to me that you're trying out a level of player who's way below your level.
Right, when you put a player on a trial, and this is why it's not befitting an organization of FaZe's stature and size, what you're saying is we aren't 100% sure it can work, and we don't want to commit to a contract, and we want the fans to know that, yes, this signing looks actually pretty lame, so don't worry about it, it's not permanent. That's what you're saying.
Not the message you want to hear when they've just signed a player.
No, there is absolutely no benefit to an organization beyond those points to say to a player that, hey, you're on trial. Now, maybe the one I could think of to add to that would be maybe it lights a fire under a player's ass to try and perform more and go and get that contract and make it a permanent sign. You ain't doing that to fucking Neo. He can go and sleep on his fucking bed made of money anytime he wants. He can go and be a coach and talk to a VC group himself. He could be an owner of a team like FaZe in the future, So the point I was going to make is, there's this broader thing going on in esports right now, and we'll segue into this when we talk about OpTic and Immortals. But, this Activision Blizzard Call of Duty League's been announced, and, they're saying, hey, guys, it's like $20 million, $25.
I tell you what the joke should be.
buy-ins.
The joke, whenever we're talking about like Astralis type players for players who player-owned dogs, my joke's going to be they're the 1%, because that's how much they own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so and FaZe are obviously a huge Call of Duty brand and need to be involved with that. But are they liquid enough to be paying that type of money? Do they want to become regionalized? Which is another insistence of the league. Having seen some of the leaks that are coming out, you wouldn't just get to be FaZe. In fact, there's a possibility you don't even get to use the name FaZe at all if they want to follow the Overwatch model again, which I think would be hugely detrimental. So you've got all of this, you've got all of this shit that's going on, and I honestly think the CS:GO team, as it stands right now, it's not a priority. It doesn't look like it's a priority from the FaZe management. It doesn't look like they're interested in spending big money on it. It looks like basically they're kind of like, let's just keep trundling along, having this revolving door for the 5th player, and maybe we get to sell Nico to a big org somewhere down the line. And look, this project's on the clock. Hello, they're gonna get you.
Never get me, mate.
Never get me. Never me. But anyway, like this is on the clock. How long before Guardian retires? How long before Olaf says I want to go back to Sweden?
That's the problem to me. Is listen, maybe neither of those players retire, but having 2 of them in one team, they're both ticking time clocks to retire. Yeah, so you have literally 40% of the team might just tomorrow say, actually, thanks, but no thanks, I'm done. I'm out at this point. At which point in time you're in deep shit right now if you FaZe. And more importantly, I know this is harsh, but I actually do kind of feel like being a player is one of those things where you should never be 50% in. Like if you like Guardian, I actually think fucked up with that interview because either what he really meant was this is my last team because I'm too old to start over again. I don't want to start working my way up. If he'd said it that way, but when people say like I might retire next year, it's like I'm not joking. If I was their boss, I'd go, I'll do you a favor and retire now. See you, mate. I'm going to get someone who actually wants to play for 5 years. Like it's a long-term project. We're not fucking playing for tomorrow, are we?
So you've got that. I mean,
that's a powder keg. That team, isn't it, across the board?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, how many more big ones can Guardian not win before he just thinks fuck it? Married life. You know what I mean? Olaf Meister. I think it's going to be better for him to go back to Sweden. And now this, we've had some Swedish teams that,
and he's always going to have that in the back of his pocket. Of course.
Yeah. It's Return of the King, man. He can fucking go and do whatever he wants. So, all told, like it's like you in that documentary you did with Deserto, which if people haven't seen it, they should go check it out. What was it called again? The
FaZe's failed era.
FaZe's failed era. That's it. You've got to look at how they had a very specific window where they could have dominated CS, and then sure, some of it was serendipity and some of it was like bad luck. Obviously, with the stuff with Olaf Meister and them having to use stand-ins, but they had a very limited window where they could have dominated the scene for the best part of a year, and it just didn't happen. And the malaise that set in after they didn't win Boston. It's been a downward trajectory since, and bringing Neo in, veteran or not, this isn't going to help that. It's not going to fix that problem at all. So, not a great time to be a FaZe fan. But who knows, stranger things have happened in Counter-Strike. Now, look, washed-up players getting sort of second chances or refusing to die is sort of like the trend that seems to be happening. I saw it was announced over on Upcomer, a new esports site that...
appropriately named.
Yeah, exactly, right. That Pasha's going to join a team called Youngsters. I mean, look, there's all sorts you can do.
Can I just ask someone for a second, right?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of players in the modern day, like here's another factor I should probably mention. One reason I don't blame people like Neo or Pasha for either sticking around or thinking one more year is because they kind of have, on a shorter time scale, that mad scenario that happened to all the sports stars, where every sports star from like the 80s, like, what the fuck is this? I was one of the best in the world when you got paid $1 million and everyone gets like fucking $150 million. They all wish they could come back, even broken down now, and play 1 year for that $20 million contract, obviously. Well, similarly, when you consider how little you used to make even 5 years ago, obviously even less 10 years ago, if you could make even $6K a month, there's players who go, you know what? Even if I make a fool of myself, I'll do 1 more year. Time I got paid. How far is this going to go, though? If we're doing this show in 5 years, are we going to be like, and of course, in the minor, we've got that team that has Existence, Scream, Makalele, Neo, and Exist. Like, fucking, how far is this going to go? This is ridiculous. It's 2019.
Well, put it this way. The last person this high profile who was in Youngsters was Jimmy Savile. So I don't know why the fuck...
Leave that in. He's
himself.
Also dead and can't clap back.
Yeah, exactly. Joke's on you, Jimmy. I just don't even understand why you're doing it. It's like it's being sold that Pasha's like going to develop this Polish talent. You know, he's playing with a player called fucking Goofy. I can't deal with it. Like this can't be what happens to these legendary players like this. Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, but right, let's be real. As you get into your 30s, the playing should be the part that you're actually quite happy to let go from your life. You know, the playing should be, the part that's easiest to give up. The question is, what's the next project? Like, what's exciting? What do you do next? What's the development? If you want to develop talent, be a fucking coach. Be a coach. Stop. And the funny thing is, actually, towards the end, Pasha was probably the best player. Like, I'm going in on Pasha here, intimating that he can't hang anymore. When actually, out of all of them,
he held it together pretty well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but Pasha to youngsters compared to Neo to FaZe, like the Pasha to youngsters is a much better move for everybody. But just saying he's gonna like help develop all this Polish talent for him in that way, like, come on, man.
It does feel like no one quits Counter-Strike. You don't quit Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike quits you. The Counter-Strike just says we will not give you a job anymore, and you go, I announced my retirement. It's like, yeah, you just can't get on a team anymore, can you? Most of these people, I've told you before, stop calling it retirement. It's just not playing in a team for 3 months. That ain't a retirement.
Yeah,
you don't just
sports retirement.
Come back 10 years after retiring football. I'm back. It's me, Maradona. I'm back. It's like, that doesn't happen, does it? You quit. If you actually retire, you retire.
And then right, again, how's this happened? So, according to sources from DK, so probably gospel, Big are holding discussions with Dennis, not Swedish Dennis, German Dennis.
The one that has the name like penis, but with a D.
Yeah, Dennis. To replace Nex. And it's like, haven't we done this? Like, haven't we done this? I don't know what to say, guys. Like, again, remember, always give this caveat. Dennis is a fucking top guy. Dennis is a top guy. No, he is. He is. You laugh. Dennis is a top guy. I think of all the times on the show, we've turned Dennis into a fucking meme and said he's bad and all of this. And he's always messaged me privately like, "Ha, great episode about the numbers." Like, really, like, it's like, Dennis is a top bloke. Like, he's a top fucking bloke. I want him to be better than he is. I want him to have a great career. I got nothing but love for the Dennis. But let's be real. Like, him playing on big, it's not going to fix anything. It's not going to help, is it? He's not better than Nex, is he? Even when Nex is playing very average. And since you brought in Xantares, while Xantares has played well, the team hasn't been functioning in the absence of Smooya, who, obviously fucked the team over massively. It's not like these were decisions that Big had, wanted to make. But, now all of a sudden, that big team that had, like, the miracle run.
I saw it was implied they're talking to Smooya again as well.
Well, they definitely need to bring him back. And Smooya can't be happy with what he's doing with his time. Hey, everyone, look, I'm standing in for Renegades in denial.
What I liked is when
nobody's come forward and made
he
nothing
goes,
for me.
I'd be happy to play in NA. Literally the entire content of NA. Guys, did you hear about me being happy? Yeah, we heard you, mate. We heard you. Well, listen, we'll call you. Don't call us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I'd love to play in NA. It's like, unfortunately, there's just no room for fucking
Smooya's messaging
like emotional train wreck chavs in North America.
Smooya was like messaging fucking Olaf, like, can I get on FaZe? And Olaf's like, let me just give Pronax one more Steam message.
No, but here's the thing. It's not even a fucking... It's not... if I was FaZe, like, Smooya over Neo, yeah, why not? I mean, don't get me wrong, it could never last. The idea that fucking Mr. Shut Up and fucking the Rat King could somehow, like, coexist. It would be an insufferable environment. That would be what pushed fucking Guardian into retirement. He'd be like, I don't give a fuck about this anymore. You're on your own, It's ridiculous, like, how this if it's a trial separation, hopefully it gives everyone a renewed appreciation for what they had with that big team that made it to the final of Cologne before losing to Na'Vi. Because I look at this roster now and it's like, you know, Nex is off there, so you'd have Denis, Gobby, right? Tabson, Tizian, and Xantara as well. This doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
I know.
Doesn't have that same oomph, you know, and yeah.
I've lost faith in this team, to be honest. This year's really rocked me for this one, because I really thought, like, I even still do think Gobby's a good in-game leader, but I have to say, I had him at that Carrigan status where, for me, I thought you could give him anyone. I thought you could give him any players. And listen, I'm not saying he'd win, but my idea would be, because this is how I see Carrigan, whoever you give him, he'll probably get the best out of that player. You know, he'll take him to a new level, or he'll open up a little bit extra, or integrate him into a team. And the problem is, this year's big has not done any of that. Like, they've had real problems the whole time. Like, you know, it wasn't like it's just one tournament and then, you know, they get it together. Like, that's why they're going to these moves, which literally are, like, these are players they played with in the past. They're literally going with the angle, as far as I can tell, of, like, whatever we were doing wasn't working. So get someone we already know in, that'll help. You know, they'll already have the comms in place. They'll know my system. That's what this smacks of.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. It just...
Like, there's got to be players in the German scene. Come on. I know a lot of them cheated or fucking dodgy as fuck online. I don't even give a fuck, mate. I just straight up say shit like that. But in the world where some of them can get away with not hacking on offline, there's got to be at least a couple that are good. Maybe there's a newer guy, you know. Look at Smooya. He probably just... Smooya looks like his favourite food is those fucking crumpets from, like, Morrison's are, like, low quality with just a butter on, like, toasted... I don't even know why, but that just looks like what he eats, doesn't it?
Nah,
you know, someone actually linked me to that.
He only eats childlike food, like golden fishies and stuff like that.
Of course.
You know, well, it was your golden fishies are on the table, Owen.
What about my turkey drummers?
I love Bernie Matthews' turkey drummers.
Oh, these are garden peas. I wanted mushy. Oh, go on, eat them. They're one of your 5 a day.
Yeah. You got any?
By the way,
don't forget your daddy's brown sauce. Class. I don't know why he eats only 80s foods, but
someone actually linked me to that bit in one of the episodes, like 2 weeks ago or something. That is like, sometimes I do just say stuff that's funny, but it has no context. Like, why did I make that random clip where I was saying that being a pro is like when Smooya asks his mum for
I don't know.
his tea or something? Well, like, I don't even know myself what I was thinking in my own head when I thought that. It was good.
I've always just chalked it down to just mental illness. I mean, I don't know, but maybe that's what's going on. Yeah, get on the couch, mate, and see if you can iron it all out and unpack your brain. Do you know? Or just do your usual, take some DMT and you know, go
to the astral realm.
Yeah, try and figure it out.
No, in my luck, I'd take...
See if the blue people can explain it to you.
I'd take DMT. I'd take the wrong one, 5-MEO, end up in some shit Blast Pro Series hyperdimension where, where's all the time machine backwards talking elves? Be like, oh, sorry, they're not actually invited to this hyperspace. Oh, buddy, no! But if you go to 5 hyperspace realms, there's a massive one at the end that's the real one, so stick around.
The idea that, like, you could take DMT and the alternate universe you go to would still be esports. I don't know what to make of that. Yeah,
I'm not exaggerating. I won't say the circumstances, but I actually once did have what could some, not me, because I'm a different person, but some would label a supernatural experience in which then what some people, not me, would call an entity was speaking to them.
But
I did actually have a thought about Counter-Strike, like, oh, that would actually work in Counter-Strike, wouldn't it? And then in that moment, I even thought to myself in this space, like, fucking hell, I think I've gone too far when I'm even thinking about that now.
You have. So anyway, I don't know. We'll wait and see as to how that's going to pan out. But it doesn't feel like it's a fucking legitimately good move. Reeks of desperation. One of the other interesting things in the DK report is it says all of the Sprouts players' contracts expire in 6 months, which makes me wonder if that organization is effectively dead and they're just going to let all the talent go. So that's been a bit of a fail. I saw Keeve was posting pics of himself now that he doesn't look like a cave troll, he used to not look like a cave troll, and then he played CS and became good at it, and coincidentally, almost as if there's something inherent in it, became a cave troll, and then he posted a picture saying, look, I'm not a cave troll anymore. So Keeve's out there.
I saw he's like fucking built now or something, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's put together. But whatever. So I'd like to see Keeve make a comeback. He had some great highlights, didn't he? down the years. Some of them online, some of them not. But yeah. Right, so hang on. There's some other stories to cover, and then we'll get into the big news right at the end. So let me just get this. Right, so let's talk about this Immortals and OpTic stuff. It's like, I don't know if we're fucking psychic or whatever, but turns out we do try and let people know ahead of time, like what's going on and why you've got to be very careful about saying yes to the big money. What's up?
I hadn't thought of this. Yeah. See, I've only seen that story, Richard, in my other esports world. So, for example, I saw the Immortals story mainly in the League of Legends world because people, anticipate, right, this means that Immortals gets an LCS spot again. I hadn't thought of this. Remember, guys, we have rules in Counter-Strike now. You can't own multiple teams. Well, which team do you think fucking Immortals is selling? MIBR or OpTic Gaming? I think I know which one's probably going out the door.
So this is the news that off the back of Immortals doing this big raise and getting 30 mil or whatever it was in yet another raise. I mean, I don't know how many this is for Immortals, but the Immortals group has had, I mean, it must be over 100 million by now. And in that, they have the LA Valiant. They bought that Gamers Club thing we talked about last time. They've got MIBR. And of course, they have Immortals, and Immortals has sort of been sat there fallow, not doing anything. Now, as we all know, Hex, somebody I love dearly, been a great guy to me down the years.
Legend.
Just one of the few owners and esports people who understand it. They get it. They understand the business. They understand the ecosystem. And he built something he can be immensely proud of in the form of OpTic, which was a great and a popular and successful esports organization, still excelling in Call of Duty. I was at the World Finals at CWL that they just won last year. And yeah, I mean, just a great guy. Now, look, one of the things that happens is when you've been in the trenches of esports for a long time, and you're dedicated to the cause, you're dedicated to that bigger picture. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of money in that. There's not a lot of money in being somebody who doesn't take unscrupulous sponsors. Remember, out of the Call of Duty orgs that came into CS, how many of them had ties to skins casinos in one form or another? OpTic didn't do any of that. OpTic were offered. OpTic could have done it. Hector's even been honest and said he did think about it, but in the end he thought, nah, I'm not going to do that. Meanwhile, the Call of Duty guys who enjoyed so much goodwill from CS because they're big names and big orgs, they basically treated our entire game like a way just to make some cheap profit from basically running kiddie casinos. Hector was the one guy who had the sort of scruples and principles to say, yeah, that's not the way I want to go. But in doing so, left probably, no exaggeration, tens of millions of dollars on the table.
Oh, no doubt. Especially if he'd have owned one of those sites, of course.
Yeah. So, and understand, this would have been a loophole because it's not regulated, as we've seen, by the lack of any resolution to any of these lawsuits, with the lack of any clarity coming out from the lawmakers. You could have literally just got away with it scot-free, like we know some people did. So Hector didn't do that. Then on top of that, I mean, you've just got the way that he went into scenes and the way that he looked to expand and always had a very thoughtful, methodical approach. And that costs money. It costs money when you want to get in and you want a team that you think you've done. You don't just pick up, hey, let's pick up a fucking these people over here without even thinking about what it means to geography, what it means to branding, who they stand for. He started with the NA guys from Conquest originally, and then when he realized, we can tweak that, he did his homework, did some scouting, did some research, went on to win a big one with the E-League. And then when that team started to break apart, he went and he looked around at other potential prospects. And then slowly but surely, Hex is less hands-on. He's less hands-on because this is the problem you always have. In doing all of this, and in doing this for as long as he has, like 2 decades, and leaving all that money and trying to be principled and trying to have scruples, you end up not having the money you probably deserve. And I've seen this happen to a few people. I talk about it happening to Jason Lake. I've talked about it happening to me because I've literally been given money, or rather, I've literally been offered money to shut up. People have said, I will give you money to shut up. I'll just give you money to shut up. I'll just give you money to kill this story. Hey, you've got all this credibility. I'll give you money to basically say that our dodgy business isn't dodgy because you have that branding, you have that aura around you. And I've left millions probably. If you add it all up, I mean, maybe not millions, maybe close to 1 million. It just, down the years. And it's hard as you get older to want to live that way. So when a big investment group came in the form of Infinite and said they wanted to buy OpTic, and they were going to offer a very decent amount, and that they wanted a controlling share, but they would still give Hector. He would be the single largest shareholder on the board, apart from the people at Infinite that made up a controlling interest of 51%. He said yes, and he took the money. And we've talked about it, and we've talked about it in interviews, and we talked about it on the No Majors Club. And he deliberated. He weighed it up. He weighed it up because it's his baby. It's the thing he cares most about in the world. He literally talks about it like it's a child. I think most people have built organizations up from scratch and been around a while talk like this. It's no different with Jason Lake. But how do you say no to millions knowing that this is the time to sell? This is the great esports gold rush. If you don't sell now, that offer probably doesn't come around again. And if it is a bubble and it pops, it was a chance of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And you've let it go. So I have absolutely no ill feeling towards any organization owner that's been through the trials and tribulations Hector has, taking that money. It was the same with Complexity. Yeah, they've rebranded so they just look like the Dallas Cowboys esports team now. How can I begrudge Jason Lake, a man who's been to the fucking verge of bankruptcy, hell and back? How can I begrudge him his money when he literally, nearly fucking died for the brand? It's like you can't say no. You can't begrudge these people having the millions. Here's the problem with it. Unfortunately, OpTic, the Infinite guys, they didn't do right by the brand. It's been an incompetent shit show since they came in. The guy that they had before, I can't even remember his name. He's been that much of a non-entity. That Chris dude who came in and was calling a lot of these shots, didn't understand the brand, and slowly but surely they stopped listening to Hector, and they started making these outrageous decisions. So what the fuck was OpTic India about? What was OpTic India about? Chris Cheney, that's it. What's OpTic India about? You can't just expand into a territory like by having a team, and it's going to be successful because it's a big brand. Chris Cheney comes in and did this, and appointed some of the people in managerial positions that should not. Chris Cheney had never ran an esports organization before, by the way. And equally as well, there were people who were like, don't worry, Hector, I've got your back, and I'll make sure that these decisions that get made won't hurt OpTic. And then they turned around and said, actually, they're offering me more money and a better title right now, so fuck your wishes.
Man alive.
And Hector realized very quickly that some people he thought were friends weren't friends. Then you have this. In this thing, people are saying, "Oh, Hector and Chris Cheney have squashed the beef." I'm not talking about Chris Cheney's intentions. I'm talking about his competence. Chris Cheney had never ran an esports organization before. I don't even think he'd ever even been a CEO of anything before, let alone a portfolio like Infinite. But then there was all this other stuff. There was all that shit show over in Overwatch with the contenders. Like, I don't give a fuck if Chris Cheney is fucking Jesus come back. And I don't care if Hector comes out and vouches for him and says he's a great guy and it wasn't any of his fault. I know that guy to be incompetent and not have esports expertise. I will not sit here and say he is for anybody, not for Hector, not for anyone else, because the reality is very apparent. But then you had all of that shit going on behind the scenes with Overwatch, where it was like Infinite were trying to control all of the contenders teams. You had people appointed in managerial positions that were like swaggering around, like fucking pimps, like fucking just telling contenders players, like, if you want a fucking career, you better sign these contracts. We got to control this entire league. That all came out, no pun intended, but that's terrible optics. It looks awful. And it was just bad decision after bad decision division. So many big sponsors that could have been fallen by the wayside because there was no deal clauses. And in the end, you bought what was a premium fucking esports brand, and between a lack of competence, a lack of vision, and a lack of listening to people who actually do know what the fuck they're doing, and shutting out people who basically made OpTic what it is, you have now left this fucking just burnt out husk of a brand, and now people are looking to buy it. So yeah, there is this talk that maybe Hector's going to try and buy it back. I don't know if he's going to get enough money. I don't know if he's going to be able to have the bidding power that Immortals Gaming Club have. And here's the next part of it: the Immortals Gaming Club group, that entire conglomerate that own all of these brands, they've told me multiple times, the people I've talked to, including Noah Winston himself, who's found out that when you let these people in, all they care about is profit, and they will fuck you. It doesn't matter how
they always fall for that.
Doesn't matter what you build.
The easiest trick that every person who had actual passion and competence always falls for in their company is they go, "Oh, you're not going to believe this, Rich. I've got the dream. I've got someone to buy the company, but they say I can stay on and do my job. So I win either way, don't I? I get the money and I get to stay on." And it's like, yeah, they'll take care of that second part pretty soon if they're assholes, mate. Like that's phasing you out. Like, of course they tell you that to begin with, but as you've seen in this scenario, one of the worst things about esports, and get ready, by the way, because this is going to happen a lot more before it fucking fixes itself. This is the reason it's going to happen. All these people who come outside as a massive group and they buy one of these teams, they're not thinking, cool, I'll get into the esports business and learn the business and grade up. They think a bit like when, for example, television tried to come into esports. They think, right, this esports thing's fucking tiny. None of them know anything. So I'll come in like the big dog who knows everything about business, and I'll show them how it's done. And it's like, that's the maddest part. Because like you're saying, they had Hex sat on the sideline waiting to give you real advice. Someone who has built it from the ground up repeatedly, like the amount of correct decisions that guy must have made, it's fucking unreal. And then you're not going to listen to that guy. You're not going to in any way delegate anything. You're not even going to take his advice when he tells you to do the opposite of what you're going to do. That's what's mad, is the hubris of these guys. And unfortunately, that just tends to go with the territory of who the people are when these big companies buy your team. They always tend to put these people in charge, unfortunately. So I could see it happening again and again.
And look, there's obviously, right, so people have been messaging me now, and you'll have to apologize if some of the details are sketchy, because this literally was breaking as I came on air. So I had all my prep notes for the show and wanted to fit this in because I thought it was important. So maybe it's something we do a follow-up piece of content about, down the way, so everything is accurate. But people are saying that Chris Cheney and Hector had bid more, and that the board had blocked it because they're very happy to sell to Immortals, the Immortals group, rather. This is another thing that you need to start thinking about. These business people only look after, they only want to do business with their own. They only look after their own. They're all about back scratching and doing favors because they're involved in a business deals periphery to fucking esports, right? So, like, obviously these people are the preference. Now, when you start looking as well at the fact that Noah Winston's not there, and the fact that Immortals got declined for a Riot Games like LCS slot, right? And that was pretty much predicated not on the fact they didn't deserve it. I think I remember somebody from Riot was like going, "Oh, we opened the books and we just didn't like their financial particulars because it was all VC money."
Amazing, isn't it? Like, look at some of the fucking teams they have in like LEC and stuff. Get the fuck out of my face. That Immortals
you even give special
in.
dispensation to, like, Golden State Warriors and people like this who literally were entangled with multiple orgs, which is expressly against your rules.
Was I believe it was a 2-year dispensation. They literally said you can have people who have direct conflict of interest, multiple ownership stakes for over a year. Just get rid of it after that if you can. But sorry, Immortals, I don't quite like the way your books look. So you're out.
Right. And here's the real reason.
Main spot in the Overwatch League, LA's main spot.
Well, here's the real reason that went down. Riot Games have had it in for Noah Winston for a long, long time. And you might go, well, why have they got it in for him specifically and not Jack and not Reggie and not Steve Arhanset, these NA owners who do run that cartel and basically know that the league is kind of worthless without them and will leverage that? Well, you see, they have Noah Winston was always the fucking, considered this like savant mouthpiece that was going to come out and basically change the paradigm. And also as well, they knew he had the ear of all these VC groups and all these power players. And he was the guy who was unafraid to go out and basically articulate what he said were his concerns, but were very often concerns of the group. He was seen as a guy that could basically, was well liked by the community, but was a guy that could add a lot of weight. And then, to any complaint that this group had about Riot Games, and could very subtly portray Riot Games in a bad light. Now, you're telling me that these two things have happened. They've raised money and got rid of Noah Winston at the same time that they're potentially coming in for OpTic. And
that sounds like a deal closer, put it that way, doesn't it? That sounds like, look, listen, well,
OpTic obviously, have this LCS approval. So, according to the report over on Esports Insider, which has done the most substantial reporting about this from what I can see at this time, apparently the people on the board of OpTic/Infinite are saying they would rather sell, like Immortals is their first choice, and they would rather sell to them, and basically even for a lesser price. And I'll just read you the bit here where it says about that, so people can get the context. Texas Esports, which is the majority owner of the Infinite Esports and Entertainment. Yes, we're at a stage now where even the conglomerates have multiple ownership. Has set a deadline for the sale for May 31st, according to sources. It is considering selling the company to Immortals Gaming Club for substantially less than the initial $150 million that they wanted, even if it means degrading the OpTic Gaming brand. Starting in 2018, Riot Games introduced franchising to North American competition, the NALCS, resulting in 10 franchises being permanent partners in the league for $10 million each. Immortals was declined as a partner and subsequently hasn't been part of the league since 2017, though that will change should the reported Infinite Esports and Entertainment purchase prove successful. Yes, this is how Noah Winston got. You have no friends in this business. It was reported in November 2017 that Texas Rangers co-owner Neil Liebman had acquired a majority stake in OpTic Gaming. The organization became part of Infinite Esports and Entertainment, which over the coming months became the home to a suite of supporting companies such as Innovative Performance Institute, Triggerfish, of course. We talked about NGA, GE Esports, Sector 6, Third Label, and No Scope Media. And it also acquired the organizations OB Alliance and Team Allegiance, which, if the purchase goes ahead, they will now all be folded into. So when we start talking about Axis of Evil and companies that you really need to watch out for, this new Immortals Gaming Club conglomerate, this is a big problem in the industry because they're going around and taking VC money and they're buying up all sorts of shit, and it's reminiscent of ES Force all over again. They're owning multiple teams in multiple games, and sure, as you pointed out, we have rules in Counter-Strike, so they probably just won't have two Counter-Strike teams. But who says they're not going to try their luck and have an Immortal CS team and an MIBR team, and they're going to put it on paper, right? And they're going to be like, look, we've compartmentalized it. There are no decision-making processes. And Valve, because it's Valve, go, yeah, you know what? I actually don't give a fuck. This isn't worth fighting for. Let's just keep the lights on. Let's keep the money coming in. Let's keep the scene controlled by the people who know how to fucking manipulate it into turning a profit for a select few, and fuck everything else, and fuck principles, and fuck conflict of interest. So, people really need to watch out for this. Before we even start talking about the CS team, final point on this. If this does happen to OpTic, it's the saddest end to the story I could have imagined. When Hector sold it, I was happy he made money. I knew he wasn't going to be like the guy steering the ship anymore, but he was going to be in the engine room. They were occasionally going to come down and be like, well, any icebergs ahead there? Engineer Hector, and watch out for this one and this one and this one. You always felt it was going to be in safe hands as long as he was involved. Increasingly in the battle of the boardroom and people trying to position themselves to get more money, specifically off this sale, because it became apparent very early on Infinite Esports were looking to do an asset flip here. Once it was clear they were out of their depth and didn't know how to run a fucking esports organization any more than they know how to run a fucking lemonade stand by the looks of it. It was like, well, fuck Hector, and let's look for the highest bidder. And, this highest bidder, but also controlled by people. We might want to have some other business dealings with them. It's a fucking nightmare what's happening to OpTic. And, like I don't even know. I mean, like they're acquiring the brand. Who's to even say they decide to keep it? Who's to even say they don't just strip out the parts they want, like maybe the the Houston Outlaws, which by the way, what a madness that is. LA Valiant and Houston Outlaws over in the Overwatch League being controlled by a single entity. I mean, could it get more?
Blizzard deals with that.
Yeah, well, they won't deal with that, mate. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. Competitive integrity is the last thing they care about. We just need to get over the finish line and pretend the league's profitable, don't we? They don't even give a fuck about Robert Kraft. Getting happy endings everywhere. And as I said, there's no fucking happy ending for OpTic fans if this deal goes ahead.
It's not a good look, put it that way. Because as I said, like if I was in the CSGO scene, the people who should be the most depressed is everyone who's a starting member of OpTic Gaming CSGO right now. Because, by the way, you're probably out of a fucking career pretty soon. Like, you're literally just going to be... Listen, you probably get bought out. I'm sure some in your contracts say they have to pay you something or let you go or whatever. But you thought you were in a team. You thought you were building something. And it's fucking MSL, of course, again. He's only just got into the squad, proved himself again. And now he's going to be wrecked, basically. Because like I say, I know to an idiot, they'd like... MIBR's not very good. Like, mate, MIBR brand is about 100 times better than OpTic in CSGO at the moment. Like, that isn't where the OpTic brand's strong, is it? You keep the Call of Duty team, yeah. You let the CSGO team go to keep MIBR tomorrow. You put so much into that. And you got the big names. It might actually be good.
I mean, look, if there's a way that the deal can go ahead with him and Chris Cheney, if Chris Cheney's the guy that just has access to the money, which I always suspected he was, because as I said, his managerial expertise is zero and his esports industry expertise even less than that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But what people don't even understand is it might not even just be about what's best for business. But when you start talking about, let's sell to OpTic and Chris because they've put the highest bid on the table. There is so much spite and pettiness in the OpTic boardroom right now, and there's been so many betrayals and so much two-facedness and just so many lies that they probably don't even mind fucking vetoing selling, is because the idea that Hector might get control of his baby back, they're going to enjoy the extra relish of knowing that they have the final say in who they sell to. That's how fucked up things were. And this is why I keep saying it to all these owners now. If you sell your brand, don't have any issue with that. But don't ever expect it to be the same thing again. Don't even expect them to listen to you, and don't expect that these people, just because they've cut you a real fucking plum deal, are going to be your friends, because they're giving you the money to fuck off.
Exactly. It's basically like selling your IP to Disney. At that point in time, if you imagine it's going to stay anything like it was, or you're going to have any say, you haven't understood the point of Disney buying your IP. They bought it to strip it out and do everything they want to do with it.
Exactly. And it's like being one of those original comic book writers when Marvel, get bought by Disney or whatever. Forget about anything you want to do. All those cool ideas you had, you ain't doing it. It's Disney's ideas right now, and they'll tell you nothing's going to change. And look, hey, we even move you to a nice, super cool studio, and we'll get you some extra artists and stuff. But also, meet this guy here. He's got a 3-letter title that you don't even know what the fuck it is, and he's just going to be hanging around the office all the time. And what does he do? He'll tell you what focus group tells you what comic books sell, and you should really pander to that demographic. We actually need a profitable quarter this time. Fuck your creativity. Oh, and by the way, if you argue, you're out on your ass immediately. And that's just how it is. These people come in, they cut things, they play with house money, and then eventually, when it's all fucking crumbling down around them, they just sell it and move on to the next project. They're not invested in the business. They're not invested in the brands they're buying. It's basically a way for the OGs to get some money, which I don't begrudge. And what the OGs should do is they should take as much of that money as they realistically feel they can spend in their mind, and they should start a new thing to stay in the game. Yeah. Don't go retire to an island. Because let me tell you, all of these people, as I say, Mark Cuban talking about esports again. He doesn't know what he's talking about. None of them do. They've just got money in the bank, and you sycophants basically give them the platform to basically worship their opinions. They're all morons. Look at me breaking this story about what's going on over at Echo Fox, where it's like a simple Google search would have told you what Amit Razada is. right? And the shit he's been into. This was a guy who was a payday loan guy, one of the most predatory industries of all time. Sure, and he had fucking money in the bank, but he had fucking multiple lawsuits under his fucking belt for, commingling of funds and other nonsense. And it's like you get in a bed with these people, right? And you think it's going to work out. They don't give a fuck about esports, and they don't give a fuck about you. They're business partners. They give a fuck about siphoning as much money off, put it into a hedge fund, let the good times roll. And you're letting them fucking pimp out, esports when you do this. So you either have to know what's going to happen, take the money and walk the fuck away. And at that moment, you should have just put a statement up, Hector, saying, OpTic is dead. I'm making a new thing. This is where real OpTic fans are going to go, and you call it something else. Or, you don't sell. Because if it's a knife through the heart, well, it's only going to get worse. And it gets worse from here. So, I don't know, man. Crazy story, but just ridiculous.
Many more of those to come as well, like I said. Many more.
You think Noah, put it this way, Noah Winston, Hector, you name it. Who's, how long before Jack I mean, I feel like Jack at the end's too much of a fucking Godfather type figure for it to happen to him. But if it can happen to fucking Noah and it can happen to Hector, it can happen to anyone. Well, how long before they're all sat in a club nursing drinks talking about how they got fucked by the business?
Here's the real problem, Richard, is most people do have a price, even if it's really high. Like, here's the problem. I would agree with you. If I had to pick someone,
don't even begrudge that. I think even I do.
I would pick Jack as one of the ones I would think wouldn't sell, right? But I tell you what, if it gets even more crazy and someone offers you $1 billion for Clan, well, now you might fucking sell. That's the point. Everyone really does have a price, because remember, all it has to get to in esports is the price just has to be so high that someone who knows about esports goes, fucking hell, we'll never see money like that again. Take it. And then, as you say, if they want to be cynical, just start a new org. Take the $1 billion, take 100 million of your money and start a new org. You're laughing. Now, sadly, you will have sold your baby, so don't expect to ever respect your brand again. That's gone. You sold that respect. But sadly, I do feel like if it gets silly enough, and then to me and you, from the old days, is already incredibly silly as it is. But then again, I look at the world we're in now, and I see how many established business people are going, this isn't even a bubble. And I go, oh, God, it could get worse. Could get magnitude of 10 times worse. And then it will be people buying up every big franchise and fucking it all up.
Yeah, I mean,
if anything, we're only on VC money now. God forbid those fucking sheiks that get into football start buying esports teams, whatever they want. That's going to be the nightmare of all.
Already happening. I got asked
because they're not even accountable to a fucking board. They just do anything they want.
I got asked if I wanted
the Chi-Coms, all those companies. Yeah.
Fuck. What's his name? That new prince they brought in. Apparently, he's super interested in esports. And he's looking to spend some money. And I think somebody, I can't remember the fuck it was. Somebody said, oh, Richard, do you want to? And I'm like, nah, do I want it again? Sorry, mate. I'm not really into regimes where you get your fucking head cut off. Like, I'm not really into that. Like, I don't give a fuck if he's got big plans for Fortnite. You know what I mean? It's like, no. But he's a moderate. He's letting the women drive now. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry, I can't. My limit is there, right? Like, once we start doing business with, fucking governments that actually do things, like businesses and corporations are shitty enough. Once we start doing it with governments, like, fuck me, I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? So that's already here. You have to understand that because we're the hot ticket, man, there is no limit to the amount of fucking depraved and unethical people that are going to come into this scene now and just fucking eat it out from the inside like termites. And let me tell you, I'm so fucking done with being that guy for 15 fucking years. It's a matter of time before I take the check.
I'll go ahead and
I hold out for real talk?
I'll go ahead and tell everyone right now, I'm not even joking when I say this. Enjoy these few years where I take these mad risks in my career. Not that mad, I can survive them. I sort of know how to survive in that sense. But these risks I take, like calling out Refresh, calling out Riot Games, calling out the Reddit mods, because that will only last a few years. I've already mentioned on this show and past shows, there are certain countries I won't talk about. There are certain businessmen already in esports I won't talk about. And it's only going to get worse. So in a few years from now, if things keep going at the level they're at, I will only be doing my analysis of the game, my interview in the game, something in the game. I won't be talking anything about the fucking business side of the game. That's for now. You get like the This is the end of the period. You're going to enjoy that. And I have to say, the sad thing is, I look behind us, mate. The next generation, even of the legit esports, they just don't break these stories. They're not interested. They don't even look. They're smart enough in a way. I can't do it personally, but fair enough. Maybe it's a different generation. They're smart enough to know I don't even want to look in that area and find out the thing I won't want to write about.
They don't give a fuck. Let me tell you about this new generation of fucking esports journalists we got. I mean, first of them, half of them are people who failed at fucking games journalism, which to fail at games journalism, I mean, I don't even know like how low a life form you have to be. And then you come into esports and you just look at their fucking Twitter feeds and it's just, hey, I'm at this event. Look at my press pass. Yeah, you get those. They're called accreditations. You need them so you can get around the event. Pretty much everyone on site has one. Look at me with a press pass. I'm a real grown-up journalist, me. Look at the T-shirts I got. Look at this selfie. Like, what the fuck is this? And then what you're telling me, these people are going to take a fucking stand against fucking, multi-billion-dollar corporations threatening them with fucking lawsuits and, all of this nonsense. People coming up to them at events saying, if you keep writing about us, you're fucking dead. And then just disappearing off into a crowd. They couldn't last 5 fucking minutes in that world, and they know it, and they're not even interested in that. They don't give a fuck. How many stories, by the way...
You got to be a weird guy to do it, that's the thing. You got to be put together in a weird way.
You got to hate yourself.
Yeah, you've got to be fucked up in some mad way. Like I've said at the beginning of the episode, if Refresh hadn't have fucked with me and kept pushing me, I wouldn't have gone this far. Too late now, of course, but that's always the story with me.
Yeah.
don't press that fucking on button.
But like legit, it's like, so, I mean, look, I predicted this in 2015. And here we are in 2019. So it's been slower than I thought it was going to be. But what you have to remember is, I told you, the scene's going to get cleaned up. It's going to get bought by corporations, and then all the old guard, one way or another, anybody that brings a bit of authenticity, a bit of realness, a bit of bite, a bit of edge, whatever you want to call it, anything that could rock the boat and eat into those profits, they're going to be pushed out one way or another. And listen. What do you think that fucking Newsweek cunt who's writing a false story about you using a bad word when you didn't use the word, and then you dig into his history and he's used the fucking word himself, but then won't resign from his job? What, you think he hasn't been told? You think somebody hasn't said to him, go get Thorin? He's a soft target.
I'm sure that guy was just a bag man. He just didn't even know what he was walking into.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing, man. So, me, you... all of the OG scoots, we're all done. We're all getting fucking. We'll either get lucky and get the option to take some money and fuck off, or we'll get the Lannisters send their regards and it'll be a red wedding.
Yeah, that's also the other thing. I'd rather leave at the point where even if I leave without the money, I'm not leaving like. And today, MasterCard announced they will no longer ever allow credit card payments for Duncan Shields. Like, oh, great. So now I can't even actually buy things in the digital new world. Sound.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave right just before that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, but here's the thing as well. It's like, it won't even be over anything political you said. It'll be because you said, NALCS is a sham. And MasterCard sponsors Riot Games, and here we go. Like, it's just getting... to a point where it's like, it's not that the battle isn't worth fighting. It's just that
it's unwinnable.
Yeah, it's unwinnable.
Just look at any other industry and see when it gets to the top level, it's like it is now, but 10 times worse. So if they can't clean up real industries with, in theory, the power of the media, blah, blah, whatever the fuck that means anymore. But, if they can't get to those people without, like, hardcore whistleblowers who always end up, doing a bit too much weights, getting into cars that have bombs under them. If they can't do that, how the fuck are we going to take care of esports when it's already getting out of pocket?
Yeah, and it's like, basically, your choice is you can keep fighting and you just die because you just get overwhelmed and you're just killed, or you can lay down your arms and you spend life in prison. You're just in the hole being tortured the entire time. So they're the options. As an iconoclast, as somebody that's tried to fight the good fight, these are your options. I don't even have a brand to sell. I can't. The only thing I can sell is my opinions. And what would be the point in even having them if they were purchasable?
I can't lie, though. I would laugh if you actually just sold the Richard Lewis brand and then it was just like, welcome to Richard Lewis. So it wasn't even you. It was just like,
it was Red Eye.
Horses. Like, well, hello. All right, lads. All right. How the British used to do this? Bloody hell. I'll sing all the intros myself.
Yeah, it might just be.
You were going a cocktail. As I said, any song sung by, and I say this with pure affection, any song sung by Red Eye is better. If I even had a chance at an esports event he's working at, to somehow make it that the after party's in a bar that has a karaoke attached to it, you think I'm not going for that? I'm angling for that from day one. I'm Google Maps that shit.
I'm not even joking, right? Like I keep trying to get him to agree to do it, but like I always message him like, "Do you like to sing, Paul?" He goes, "No, I don't sing. I'm like, "Paul, mate, come on, let's do
You have the voice of an angel."
Yeah, just let's do the album, man. Let's do the album. I'm ready. I'll pay for it. Like,
oh mate, we'll do it in a national studio, I think.
You I tell you what song I would actually no joke, if I could pull one track for him to sing, I would actually go comedy. I'd go Eiffel 65 Blue.
It'd be pretty good, I guess. Like, nice wrinkle. So anyway, so there you go.
And they go, "Why are you doing that Crazy Frog song?" I wasn't. I was doing Blue.
So there you go. Anyway, basically, we'll keep an eye on the OpTic situation, see how it pans out. But you know, I wouldn't bet against Immortals being the new owners, and then what that means, who fucking knows? And people in the chat were even messaging me there saying, "Yeah, Blizzard are totally fine with LA Valiant and Houston Outlaws being all bad." Of course they are. They wouldn't give a fuck if one person owned all the leagues. I mean, effectively, that's how it works anyway, right? They're all Blizzard's property. Whatever. Fuck Overwatch. That's a separate thing. So final bit of news, and then we'll wrap up the show. We'll get to viewer questions. They've finally gone and done it. They've done the change, literally while we were on air again. So apologies for some of the if anything about that OpTic story wasn't quite right. Hopefully we've got this. Basically, they've now changed the loss bonus money. Okay. So after
it's capped at 5 now, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
that immediately sounds better.
Yeah. That's what everyone was asking for. It makes more sense.
Yeah, Valve have actually listened and done it, so that's fine. You know, no problem with that. And I mean, a lot of people were saying it was like having a profound impact on the scene and the quality of games, and I saw a lot of pros intimating that, and I saw some of the pundits intimating that. I don't know, it didn't feel that bad to me, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it was something I was missing. Maybe I'm showing my age. What do you make of it? I mean, I'm not saying this change isn't better in the direction that it needed to go in, but do you think it was as bad as people were making out?
I will say there did seem to be a lot of 16-14 games ever since that change came into play. And if I look at a lot of the games, there were times where the team that was in the lead almost did seem like they were being punished for like winning the round, but like, you know, letting the bomb explode, or, well, that wouldn't make sense actually, it couldn't be on the team, just letting someone plant and then defusing it, or too many people dying. There was like a few scenarios. That's why I made that tweet like a week ago where I was like, the thing about the new economy, no one's really figured out as like a hard and fast rule. Is like, is it worth, for example, me sacrificing 2 guys to just stop you planting and getting that money? Like, how does that work? Because in the old version, no, I just do a retake, no problem. But sometimes better to have the numbers, you know. But actually, in the new economy, I would say this, because it had only been around for a couple of months, if you know how things work in games, people don't figure out all the like nooks and crannies of every single thing. It takes a while to do that. Like, think about how long it took people to even figure out that the UMP was a viable gun. It was just sat there the whole time. So in similar fashion, maybe someone would have just figured out like a better set of guidelines that, you know, you buy on this round, you don't on this one, it would have fixed it. But I thought it was like a mild concern. I don't know that it was like a massive problem. It's always tough because obviously players do want immediate change, so they will blow them out of proportion. They might have slightly over-exaggerated, but I did think it was a bit too powerful. I thought it needed a bit of reining in, but hopefully this is one step in the right direction.
Yeah, and the other thing they added, which when I first saw it, like looking on the blog, I was like, oh, but nah, it's not that good. Basically, they've now put a like these games are live tab into the client, and it's in partnership with HLTV. So it's a big deal for them, I suppose, in a way. because they've been limping along with just that dreadful old site for a long period of time, and traffic.
Literally never had a really famous sponsor. Never. Literally millions and millions of that. Never had Coca-Cola. Any brand you can think of. You've never heard of any brand that sponsored them till they sponsor HLTV.org. Enough said. That's how good at monetizing their business they are. Or it's almost like you can't really monetize 200 million people from India at the same rate as 10,000 people from America.
Yeah, I mean, that was the key thing. Like, I mean, when we were, I can't remember what the fuck they were talking about. I think there was a period where they wanted to sell for like something insane, like $10 million or something. And,
which at the time was insane, obviously.
Yeah, they were doing the deck was doing the rounds, and they laid out their traffic, and it's like the numbers look good. You're like, oh yeah, this is still a very, still a lot of traffic, this website. And then you're like, but a lot of it's from India, and then it's like when you get into geolocated targeted ads, and who buys like Alienware computers and stuff like this. This is something that doesn't have a large market share in.
That's why, by the way, I always used to get triggered by that stupid line that people always say about HLTV.org, where they always imply, I'm not even joking when I say this, by the way, the actual consensus on Reddit is they think that people are all joking on HLTV.org when they post in a stupid manner. The famous line they say is, Reddit is where where dumb people go to look smart, and HLTV.org is where smart people go to look dumb. It isn't. It's literally people with broken English. It's literally people who don't know what they're talking about. It's literally people who came 5 minutes ago from some other website they clicked on and are just posting any thoughts they have. You have overthought this one, guys. It ain't a secret cabal of fucking it's not like that Andy Kaufman's going like, watch this fucking elaborate joke that no, it's actual idiots, you moron. What's the simplest explanation?
And look, I think like if they just nuked the forums, I don't know how much traffic would be.
They'd have nothing, mate. Let's be real.
But
this is basically what I got them with years ago, wasn't it? It's the reason why all
ultimately improved the site, wouldn't it?
That's why I made this point about years ago. When they had all the racism and movie spoilers, that's a fucking feature, not a bug. The feature is anyone can get their post on the front page. That's how you get fucking mad traffic, even if you've got nothing else going on. Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's a positive for you.
So, them being officially kind of recognized and effectively integrated into the clients, obviously like a big move, good news for them moving forward. Don't know what that'll do to the site. 'Cause, I mean, look, right now, if you like CSGO, there's not for news or anything, but for just in terms of stats and data, it's pretty much HLTV. And that's what you've got. Sure. Love it or hate it. That's what you have to work with. So it'd be interesting to see if this is part of a much more fruitful partnership where maybe, Valve can help them out in other ways. We'll wait and see. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, just imagine if they went full Dota on it. And finally, we had Valve control the CSGO TV servers, and CSGO TV is open to all. And that would, I keep saying it because while I understand there's, it's not good for TOs because of the money in the broadcasting rights. I just think in terms of overall in the scene, viewer numbers and the type of content that could be created, and the new.
Put it this way, I'll give you an example.
It would bring a lot of positives.
I'm not exaggerating. If you had the same functionality that they have in Dota 2, where anyone can cast from a live event, what you think there's times where. I mean, Sadik is already doing it. He does it on Caffeine when they did the last Dreamhack. He just did one way, like a no majors type club scenario. You think a whole bunch of us wouldn't just sometimes fuck around and do that? Now, that's not supposed to compete with the main broadcast. I'm not trying to take like the ESL to do. But of course, that would be fun. That would only actually increase viewership of the game. Because then the idea is the kind of person who'd watch you or me or someone else, but not the mainstream, can also watch. You literally do just stack everyone up. You're not even competing for the same person necessarily.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the key thing here that people don't talk about when we talk
about. That probably is the next generation as well, isn't it? Of boosting the viewership. Like put it this way: think about a pro player who's at home, Pasha. Say Pasha does a stream of the major on the side,
which he does sometimes.
There are going to be people who watch who wouldn't watch the major, right? They're just a fan of Pasha. That's the way we level this game up if we want to.
Yeah, well, exactly, and it's like you say, you're not competing for the same person necessarily, and that's what they don't seem to recognize. It's like when it's pretty cut and dry. When I buy exclusivity for the NBA games, the person I want to hook into watching my TV station is an NBA fan. But the reality is, let's say that within that you decided, right, we're just going to have one that's done by, I don't know, a fucking, Bill Burr. Bill Burr doing commentary on an NBA game, right? Like, and now all of a sudden...
I'd watch that no matter who the teams were, of course.
Exactly. All of a sudden, I now have an option of, I can go here and watch Bill Burr doing commentary on an NBA game, right? And let's say it's pay-per-view, or I can just watch the regular game without, like, obviously I want to see Bill Burr fucking do commentary on NBA. I'd be fucking sick, wouldn't it, right? So it's like, but would that person hooks in a Bill Burr, that broadcast hooks in a Bill Burr fan? That broadcast hooks in somebody who's curious to see how the fuck that would work.
And it would be inappropriate to have Bill Burr as the main NBA commentators. That's why I say it even makes perfect sense.
So you have to have both. But not everybody would like that. Not everybody even likes Bill Burr's comedy, let alone what he would do in a sports broadcast. So actually, thanks, but no thanks. I will stick to watching the main broadcast with the main commentators and everything else. But all you do by offering that choice is you expand now. Look, it's Valve who really need to be concerned about the viewership in a way more than the TOs. But again, why has ESL not come and said, oh, like, here's the major and this will be the mainstream, but so we can count your traffic and use our sponsors on your broadcast, or maybe even bring in unique sponsors specifically for that broadcast. We'll partner with you. Here's some money. We get to put you in the deck at the end of the event. We didn't just do a mainstream. We did an alternate broadcast, a fun broadcast. So, like, I think you will start seeing this, because otherwise, it's like you say, how do we increase the viewership? And you increase viewership by offering choice and more content. And I really hope Valve do it for CS:GO. I've hoped for a long, long time that they do it, and not just because I have a vested interest in that. I think the TOs can still win, and the community can win as well. It's not a zero-sum game. So hopefully it's a first step in the right direction. Anyway, move on to the viewer questions. We got Butt Pounder 420 asks, have you ever considered expanding your content by directing a porno called Thorin's Thoughts?
You know what? You've seen how I am on all the other episodes. I keep it real with the fucking patrons. Just because you pay doesn't mean I'm going to pretend like what you say was intelligent. Here's the problem with that. I know that that's a funny joke to you, but I'll give you the analogy. That's like when someone comes up to me in a bar and goes, Duncan, more like drunken. It's like, do you imagine that's the first time I've heard that? You know, I've heard that exact joke for about 4 years. You definitely weren't the first one to say it. I doubt you even said it first. So it's an okay joke. The problem with it as a joke, it's like I said on the last episode, is basically that's not a question, is it? That's just you made a funny joke. Like, what's my response to that supposed to be? Like, no. So basically, there will be no fun. No.
So what you're telling me, Duncan, is you haven't honestly thought about directing an esports team porno? It's never crossed your mind.
I haven't actually thought about that.
I told you about the one that I sort of like did an outline for, didn't I? Clan Bang. You remember that?
Yeah. You'd have to change that now, of course.
And Land Bang.
Yeah, and then the sequel was Land Bang.
No, but I'm just saying.
No, you can't have Land Bang without Clan Bang.
Yeah, Clan Bang sounds like a different type of movie. Sounds like
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I just keep the word clan off everything. I'm amazed that FaZe just keeps that. Just call yourself FaZe Team, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I didn't think
Why are you even calling yourself that? I'll never get over that moment. You remember it, where Anders just goes,
yeah.
Are you all down with the clan or whatever? I was looking around like,
yeah.
So, how am I ever getting fired for shit? This guy's on the mic, get him off.
Was that like E-League or something?
Something like that, yeah. It was like a massive tournament.
Yeah. No, but I think it was even more ridiculous. I think it was like something like, and I think 2019 might just be the year of the clan. And then he turned around and like went, are you down with the clan? It was like, fucking Anders' brother, like. No, but it's what I mean as well. This is obviously, again, I've become so fucking used to, warping everything through the prism of American history being the most important history of all time,
God forbid any of the people who are doing all this stuff now, like, oh, the secret hand gesture, this means, he hates all the black people. So God forbid those people ever get that clip of Anders. It's over for all of us. Are you all down with the clan? No, please, no.
Right. Anyway, he did ask a real question. I followed League CSGO Melee for 5 years now. I've poured through the Liquipedias and other databases to learn about the history of tournaments and the timelines of rosters and players. Sounds like we got a future Thor in here, Butt Pounder's just you, isn't it? You have had a psychic break and you're just talking to yourself through the medium of Butt Pounder. I can honestly say that I have never ever once seen an Italian flag by a player nor commentator's name. Hell, not even for TOs nor observers. Considering that Italy is a major European country with a substantial population, why is it completely non-existent in esports? So, I mean, I can tell you about this. I mean, because there was actually an Italian CSS team that was going to events and was doing pretty well in, at some tournaments, including the first Copenhagen Games 2010. Which was the inaugural Copenhagen Games. Now, I can't remember the name of the team because it's been too long. It's almost 10 years. But they had a player on there called Googly who actually ended up playing in like some GUGLI. He ended up playing in some UK lineups for a while because I think he had like a work program or something. He was coming out to the UK. And then there was a LAN in Italy, and I can't remember the name of the LAN, but I don't know if you remember this. They played they played a LAN where instead of prize money, you got tokens that were redeemed for their value in gold.
Oh, okay. And there's been a few LANs have tried that sort of gimmick, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, so sort of like a crypto before crypto. So
in many ways, gold was the original cryptocurrency, wasn't it?
And obviously, I know immediately you're probably going to be talking about, is it Sturmy, right?
The Quake player, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, in CS, they never really were relevant ever. Like, even in the very, 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 very beginning of CS, where some countries that, were way bigger than they ever were later in esports, somehow, they never were relevant. Italy has never, ever been relevant in Counter-Strike, vaguely near tier 1. The only period in history in esports I'm aware of that they were big was, like you say, people like Sturmy and Quake and Painkiller. Mm-hmm. That's it, though. In the very early days of Quake, they had a TDM team called Tolls. That's about it, though. Like, reasons why, first of all, much like countries like Poland, Portugal, they had massive internet problems in infrastructure for the first, 5-6 years. As far as I know, there's also the whole factor that, if you just think about how Italian culture is, I think it shares something with British culture in this sense, actually, that even though you've got a lot of people who play games, not that many seem to be on the competitive side. It's more like they play games for fun. As you'd imagine, the sort of Italian youth, I imagine, likes football, plays a bit of games on the side. They're not the same sort of drive to be top pros. So for whatever reasons, yeah, Italy's just never been a big player in Counter-Strike whatsoever. Esports in general, to be honest.
While I was trying to Google and find out the name of that LAN just there, I did just come across a cryptocurrency called Pyramidian. Sign me up to that, mate. What could be wrong with Pyramidian?
Also, why are you using any pyramid-related phraseology in light of the concept of a pyramid scheme? What are you doing?
I know. It's like maybe the word.
It's like if I launch a new coin
to be avoided.
I'm just launching my new coin here today, but gone tomorrow. Ethereum. You wouldn't do it, would you?
No, you wouldn't. Right, anyway, Rekovic on Steam says, after the disappointing way that the Astralis era ended like a wet fart, have there been any other eras that ended in equally disappointing or boring manners? Not just limited to CSGO, but all of CS. That's a tough one.
There are. There's a few.
I mean, in 1.6, I want to say that when Navi fell off, it was pretty, they kept limping along and they were like a shadow of themselves for a while.
Yeah, but here's the thing. At least they kept the same lineup. One thing I will say that killed a lot of eras was, I mean, this is just how young esports was back then. Sometimes, even if you had the best team, you changed players. It happened. Yeah. So, for example, two of the classic dynasties in Counter-Strike is SK and Fnatic. Well, when SK had the year that everyone remembers, where they were almost done, from about halfway through the year to the end of the year, they literally lost one map on LAN and they won something like 8 tournaments in a row, including 3 majors in a row. Now, to anyone else who's ever played Counter-Strike, you go, well, the one thing we're definitely not doing is changing lineup. But believe it or not, Element literally left that team to go and join the second best team in a way the team he'd just beaten in the final of the major. Now, obviously, that's because he was a very incorrigible individual who was a bit erratic in his decision making. And so basically he did break up what at the time had been the most dominant team ever, literally not only at a whim, but because they were too dominant and he needed a challenge. So you're almost never going to get something like that again. So there's that one. Then when you think about the Fnatic team in 2009, that was a Get Right of Forest and Gox. That one was still extremely good at the end of the year, and they broke up where Gox got kicked purely over an internal personality difference. That's it. Not even anything in game. So I would say those are examples of like dynasties and eras where it's like, what a shit way to end the era, where like one is one of the best players went, actually, we're winning too much. I'm just going to knock off to the second best team, see if I can get back to the top again. And then the other one was like, I didn't like the way he spoke to me, so break the team up. It's like, that's what the old is. And if you notice, a lot of that's just lack of professionalism. I don't think that would happen in the modern day with the massive contracts and hopefully we're past that.
Yeah.
A lot of that just immaturity, and small scene and that.
And I think that's all of the questions. So what I'll do now is obviously give a shout out to the sponsors, rivalry.com. As we said at the start, I didn't have it in front of me, but I got it in front of me now. You can go and check out up until May 19th, their latest Thunderdome. So what a Thunderdome is, if you don't know, you can type ! Thunderdome in the chat if you want to. Basically, a Thunderdome is you make picks of who's going to win. And if you get a perfect ticket with 10 matches correctly predicted, like an accumulator, it's completely free to enter. You win $300. And as Sam said, they're doing a mixed bag of tricks for this one. So this doesn't just include Counter-Strike games this time around. It also, because we're kind of between tournaments right now, includes some Call of Duty games and some Quake games as well. So this might be something you might want to do, Duncan. Because I didn't. Yeah, well, I don't even know. It looks like Quake. Is it Quake?
Might be StarCraft. I'm not sure.
Oh, is that StarCraft 2? My bad. Sorry.
It might be.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, no, I think it is. Sorry, I saw the logo and it looked like the Quake Q, but it isn't. It's actually StarCraft 2.
Right.
So yeah, so even StarCraft. Either way, point still stands. It might be something that you might want to do. So you go in, make your picks, super easy, sign up an account, and if you get it right, you win $300. And obviously, winning this one wouldn't preclude you from entering other Thunderdomes. Generally, Rivalry do one every week, so go and check that out. And by doing it, you support the channel, you support me personally because they're our sponsors and they've been pretty good to us. So there you have it. And of course, a shout out to the patrons that resurrected this podcast back from the dead, which includes our $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Detlef Insomniac, Crickevic on Steam, Mikhail, Alex Ragnarsson, and Butt Pounder 420. And our $50 patrons, Marcus Kyumpar, TC Owen, Sard Sawar, Watch Doge, Carve, Madsen, Colin Penny, and Benakagi Assassin. That was By the Numbers. We'll be back at a similar time and place next week. Keep looking at our Twitters to let you know. And until then, take care of yourselves.